Let's settle now for the news, and we kick off with President Akakpo, who has sacked Sarah Adwoa-Safo as Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection with immediate effect. This was contained in a press statement issued by the presidency on Thursday, July the 28th, under the signature of the Communications Director, Eugene Ahin. According to the statement, President Akakpo did so under Article 81A of the 1992 Constitution. Let's take a quick look at that statement, and it's dated the 28th of July 2022, and it's titled Revocation of Honorable Sarah Adwoa-Safo's Appointment. And of course, it emanates from the Communications Directorate, Jubilee House, Accra. And it reads, in accordance with Article 81A of the Constitution, the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has revoked the appointment of Honorable Sarah Adwoa-Safo, Member of Parliament for Dome Kwabenya, as Minister of Gender, Children and Social Protection with immediate effect. The Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources, Madam Cecilia Abna-Dapa, will continue to act as caretaker minister for the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection until such a time that President Akakpo appoints a substantive minister. It is signed, of course, by Eugene Ahin, Director of Communications, Office of the President. But earlier in Parliament Thursday, Speaker of Parliament Alban Sumana Bagben deferred the decision on Sarah Adwoa-Safo, and two other members of Parliament referred to the Privileges Committee for absenteeism. The minority and majority leaders had been at each other's necks on what should happen to the report of the Privileges Committee laid in Parliament. Parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante now reports.
Leader Osei Chairman Sabonsu argued that the report of the Privileges Committee must be final and not subject to any vote from all MPs.
Mr. Speaker, the committees of this House has the authority to determine the urgency of a bill. Once they make a determination, it binds all of us. Plenary has no business in this. People should understand that. So this is not the first time a committee is authorized to make a declaration for on behalf of the House.
Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu fought back, insisting a Privileges Committee report should be subject to the decision of the entire House.
We are about 120 and they are 55. For fear that you are going to lose the vote, you are saying you want statement. We won't give you statement. We will vote and you will lose. But Speaker, we are not ready. We are not qualified. We will lose.
Deputy Minority Whip Ahmed Ibrahim argued that the majority were afraid they would lose a vote if it came to that, whilst NDC MP Mahama Yarega argued that by law, all committees must report to the House.
That Parliament and the Parliament of Ghana is not the Speaker of Parliament, and that the Parliament and Parliament of Ghana is not the chairman of the Subsidiary Legislation Committee of Parliament, and that Parliament is not the majority leader, nor is it the minority leader. That the Parliament of Ghana is the well-constituted 275 members of Parliament elected thereon to exercise the legislative authority of Ghana on their behalf. On their behalf. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, so a report has to come to this House, and the committee has to demonstrate to this House that the person was given the opportunity to exercise reasonable explanation, and the person did not provide reasonable explanation.
So this has been a long-drawn battle. The lines are drawn now. The majority side are going all out to argue that Sarah Adwoa-Safo should lose her seat, whilst the minority, surprisingly, are rather supporting the Member of Parliament, saying, if anything at all, that debate must come to the floor and the 275 members of Parliament should take that decision. It is expected to drag on for a while. When Parliament resumes in October, members will be expected to go back to this vexed question and take a decision that will potentially leave some precedent for the future. This Sarah Adwoa-Safo saga is not going away. Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagben ruled that a decision will be deferred until MPs return from their recess in October.
I have consulted the old lady. The old lady has given me an advice, and I think that advice is correct. because the issue raised by the majority leader is both of substantive and procedural law. And I need time to submit to this House a reasoned, written ruling. I cannot, in the haste of today, give you the ruling.
Meanwhile, constituents of the Domikwabenya area are divided over the proposal in Parliament to declare the seat vacant. Michael Ashley, my colleague, was at the constituency and came through with this report.
Parliament's Privileges Committee is recommending that the Adwoa Safo seat be declared vacant. According to them, she failed to make use of all other avenues to reach out to them and also get to her. So they are effectively declaring her seat vacant. We are in the constituency, Domikwabenya constituency, asking the residents, the constituents, what they make of the whole Adwoa Safo issue, whether the recommendation should be followed through or she should be given some more time to respond adequately. Daddy, what do you think about the Adwoa Safo thing? Should the recommendation be taken through that she should be asked to leave the seat?
I mean, we can say Adwoa Safo near Panasempa, but Okosi Muyatuna or Ma. I mean, my dream is just say the city of Dampine because in Penfosu here, that's what you're doing more man. That's what Madia. I say to me, uniform for a financial constituency.
You know, he can't be on the sea why it's not working. So if it's working perfectly, we don't have any problem with it. But since it's not there, the seat is vacant. And Domikwabenya people are suffering. What he's supposed to do, he's not doing. So if they call her and he's not coming, they should find someone who can do the better work for us.
Me padia ke kamen kwa kaye friend e se ko mbra embe yina no but say o amba me yina no yanka say afeni so dia 4 years ye nto abama no be yina free so.
Oh, I think for now they should give her some times because you know you can't just let her go like that. You just give her some time because I've heard that she's around. So maybe she will come to the parliament and explain everything.
Okay, I think they should give her some time because maybe it's because she's having a tangible reason for not attending the meeting or not responding to the calls. So they should just give her some time and see. But if she's still not responding, then they can take her off.
How much time are we talking about here?
Oh, okay, I don't have a particular time, but I think maybe 4 or 5 months it's okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right now, you say she should leave the seat. She should leave the seat?
No. Because she Kwabenya people, let's say Kwabenya constituency, they like her. That's why they voted for her. So she shouldn't leave now. Yeah.
I see. Finally, when she eventually they go ahead with the recommendation and she's removed from office. And she decides to run again, either on the ticket of the MPP or as an independent candidate or any other way. You as a constituent, would you put her back in parliament?
As for me, I love her, so I still choose her. So yeah, I love her. I didn't see her personally, but I think I like her and everything. So we should give her some times.
But children didn't see me party me to abamano. I want better man or me party my body on command.
Yes, I'll vote for her. I'll vote for her. I like her, so I'll vote for her.
Oh, David, maybe go down to there. My need to say to my trouble man, because I can't hear fast. Only any.
Yeah. No, as for that would not be possible because she didn't do well for us. Why can you come back as an independent so that we vote for you? For that one, if she's not able to achieve this goal for us, there's no way for her to come back again.
Let me thank you very much. So these are some of the constituents in the Domikwabenya constituency for Adwoa Safo. What we know of the conversation in Parliament, Privileges Committee recommending that her seat be declared vacant. Only time will definitely tell whether this recommendation is going to be followed through or the NDC will get their way in Parliament. For JoyNews, Michael Ashale.
Well, on our next story, the constituency office of the MPP says they will agree with any decision from Parliament, provided it is grounded in law. And in the event that the recommendation is followed through, they hope to retain the seat in any by-election. Here is Constituency Secretary Theo Lansah Labi.
So I'm getting the impression that then you are siding with the recommendation from the Privileges Committee that her seat be declared vacant.
I can't fight it. I can't actually fight the decision of the law, because I don't think the Privileges Committee will be working outside the law. They are parliamentarians. I am a party officer. So I can't fight it from where I am sitting. The only thing I can do is to keep advising my member of parliament to officially communicate with the Privileges Committee and leadership of parliament and also respect the law. That is what I can do. But if she fails to do it, then I always say she hasn't been fair with herself and she hasn't been fair with the constituency who voted for her.
As a constituency, what are you doing now? Are you preparing to replace her?
What it is that we are not preparing to replace her because she has not been moved now. Until we get the official notification of this constituency seat vacant, then we take the necessary steps to make sure we hold on to power. That has been the main objective of the party and the constituency, that we keep on holding on to power.
Now, here's a matter of concern. With 2 days for the SIM card registration exercise to end, the minority in Parliament is asking President Akufo-Addo to cause the extension of the exercise. Speaking to journalists in Parliament, Deputy Ranking Member on the Communications Committee, Sam George, said it was a national security imperative to extend the exercise.
We want to use this means to call on His Excellency, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to instruct his Minister for Communications and Digitalizations to rescind her decision on the deadline, as it holds potential national security implications for millions of Ghanaians who have not been able to, due to no fault of theirs, register their SIM cards. We urge the President and National Security Minister not to treat this issue with kid gloves and take cognizance of the brewing threat of terror and ensure that millions of Ghanaians who earn a living by the use of their SIM cards on a daily basis are not disenfranchised.
Well, ranking member on the committee, Alhaji ABF Hussaini, wondered why government was insisting on only the Ghana card for the registration when so many Ghanaians were still yet to secure the card.
So we all know that accessibility to the Ghana card today is not available to millions of Ghanaians, tens of millions of Ghanaians, through no fault of theirs. Indeed, just about 2 weeks ago, the NIA was in this house to brief the house, and they themselves considered that not only do they not have offices across all the districts of this country, but that they are even handicapped in terms of even bare logistics, like printing cards, common ordinary printing cards, staff, and other logistics to be able to meet the growing needs of the people in respect of the obtaining of this card. And so they considered that they have challenges for which they sought the assistance of Parliament to get done. So if you cannot afford everybody access to the Ghana card, why are you making it automatic, compulsory? And in doing so, let me quote the relevant portion that the minister is seeking to use. The minister is seeking to use LI 2111. And LI 211, if you read it, it doesn't tell you that it is the sole document. It says it shall be a principal document. Principal is not coterminous with sole. And indeed, we ourselves have had the opportunity to sit with the minister and indicate to her that she should include other forms of identification, such as the voter ID card, which is popular. The voter ID card, for instance, there are over 70 million Ghanaians who have a voter ID card. Can you imagine that if they allow the voter ID card, how many Ghanaians can immediately go and authenticate their SIM cards?
Now, a security analyst at the Jatike Center for Human Security and Peace Building, Adib Sani, has indicated that the reason Ghana has not been hit yet by any terrorist attack is because it's been used as a central point for the terrorists to reconvene. He said Ghana was now being used as a withdrawal base after attacks in Togo, Burkina Faso, and the Ivory Coast. He has therefore called for improved intelligence to aid in the fight against terror attacks.
A security analyst said this at a public forum to mark the 20th anniversary celebration of Lansah, an NGO in the northern region. Speaking on the theme, surge of violent extremism in the sub-region threats to Ghana's security, stability, and socio-economic development, Mr. Shani said the government needs to do more by involving more people in the terror fight.
The reports, as published by Pro Mediation, a French NGO, suggest that Ghana has become more like a withdrawal point for these terrorists operating within the Cascade area, that is between Ghana, Ivory Coast, and Burkina Faso. So if they stage attacks in these countries, they just conveniently withdraw into Ghana, reorganize themselves, restock, then go out to stage other attacks. So they are not attacking Ghana not because they don't have the capacity or capability, but because Ghana is being used as a central warehouse, as indicated in another report submitted earlier this year to the UN Security Council about the presence of a terrorist warehouse in Ghana, Togo, and in Benin.
The Director, Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Center, Professor Kwesi Enim, said there was the need for government to listen to the concerns of the people.
I think it's a matter of understanding the complexity of the challenges that we face, what our vulnerabilities are, how we can deal with those vulnerabilities. But even more importantly, how to understand the enemy. You know, more often than not, we tend to romanticize who the enemy is. Over the past couple of months, the physiology, the terrorists are coming. There may be an attack. Creates an impression that this is something like a light switch that can be turned on and off. And I think when you sow that kind of fear, particularly from the state side, it's most unfortunate.
The Executive Director of NORSAC, Mohammed Awal Al-Hassan, said they look back with satisfaction the impact they have made.
My dear participants, we look back with high level of satisfaction as our impact has become glaring and discussed on a daily basis at different levels. We specifically refer to the following: piloting and scaling up gender-friendly leadership structures that have allowed most schools to introduce structures that allow all sexes to compete for positions in senior high schools. Piloted and made a case for use of pedagogy to facilitate reproductive health education in schools at basic and senior high schools, reaching out to over 100,000 young people and women directly on reproductive health issues, sexual and gender-based violence, and participation of women in decision-making processes.
It's a wrap for the AM News. Thank you for staying, but stay with us. Up next, the News Review. Well, thank you for staying with us. Thank you for joining us for the News Review. And this morning, guess what? We have a surprise for you. You don't usually see him at this time of morning. Oh, you want to know who, man? It's a certain EKM, Ernest Kojomenu.
Why is my presence here a surprise?
Sir, we don't usually get the privilege of having you join us at this time of morning.
Well, I'm honored to be here. So I'm here. I'm here today.
You are.
I'm here today.
Good to have you.
Yeah, Charlie.
I love your beats.
Yeah.
And your outfit.
Yeah, I also love your, your jewelry and all of that. Always.
What the other name? What work room?
Oh, this one is what people like me can afford. Not
current.
not
current.
the type.
Now, catch him.
Not the type. Not the type.
Yeah, I get your level. This
Not
one.
the type
I hear.
Benjamin, how are you doing? How are you doing?
You want me to move away from?
Let's move on quickly.
Let me ask you this interesting bit.
Yeah.
In the course of this week, what for you would be your maybe 3 biggest stories?
Oh, definitely. Adwoa Safo is.
I knew it would be in there.
And yesterday's development, has really pushed it number 1, and entrenched that position in the headlines. It's dominated everywhere. The Ghana Statistical Service, the police's reaction or response to the Ghana Statistical Service,
and the Ghana Statistical Service's
and then
own
yesterday,
rebuttal.
Exactly, they actually responded also to the police. So that is number 2, and number 3 would be. What else? Well, we have the Afrobarometer, right?
Afrobarometer.
So
report.
I'm not sure about the Afrobarometer and.
So we've had 3 to contemplate. Global Info Analytics in terms of the presidency, the pairing between Mahama, Bawumia Mahama, Alal Tramateng.
Okay.
The same Global Info Analytics now on some members of parliament likely to lose their seats. And then there's the Shraj GSS UNODC report, which is a deviation from the perceptive line of thinking.
Which actually looks at actuals.
Exactly.
And in yesterday's, the statistician's rebuttal to the Ghana Police Service, he says, look, we set up a committee, a steering committee.
A steering committee. And you were on it.
And the police was represented. And so what's the big deal? In fact, the police actually knew the questions, and in the finalization of the questionnaire, they were actually involved. And so they're actually surprised by the police's reaction to this. Plus, this was mainly premised on the engagement of the public with public officers.
Exactly.
So it was the ranking was not as a result of who have you bribed, but who have you engaged with the most. So obviously, the ordinary person would engage more with the police than with the statistical service. And that was in response to why the statistical service was not in the ranking themselves.
In fact, yesterday I had a bit of an interaction with the statistician, the government statistician, and he made mention of certain things in terms of, the GSS itself and Shraj being in other reports related to same. So some of the claims made by the IGP, not necessarily, maybe coming from a standpoint of not being aware of certain things that have happened. But I found it surprising because was it a break in the chain of communication between the representative on the steering committee and maybe
the hierarchy of
the Ghana Police Service? I've just been contemplating.
I mean, that is possible, but it's quite unfortunate. But the other part of it is, I mean, you look at the posture of this IGP, Dr. Kufuor.
Some say he's too defensive. And to an extent...
It would appear...
To some extent, I agree.
It would appear so, following his response to the...
Exactly.
UK High Commissioner.
And now...
And now this. But also, I mean, when you read his response, his point is, there's a stereotype.
Right.
And some of
But who created the stereotype?
Go along with...
Who created the stereotype?
And so...
Go back into the 90s. The stereotype has been there. How did it come about? You can have a positive or negative stereotype depending on what you do. And I don't really get his angst from this standpoint. This is not new. It's not almost to say, oh, when you came, then the Ghana Police Service was ranked the most corrupt. This has been with us as someone.
I mean, we can understand you are doing so much to, reform the Ghana Police Service. But the fact on the ground is the public perceive the police to be corrupt. This report has put some figures to it. And so I think we should be looking at how we can help the police to reform and also, put our acts together and make sure that we get the police to be world-class like he's actually determined to do. I'm not sure about, this pushback, these strong weather statements. It may be a bit of a put-up. You listen.
It may unnecessarily antagonize other state agencies. And for me, my last bit is the DCOP saying that but it is not our fault too. People bribe us. It is the general public that I found that curious.
When we did the Vox, yes, some of the people were engaged agreed. But I mean, coming from the police, in response to this, I think that it is quite disappointing. But
it's
I'm
a no-no
saying,
because the law stipulates that you shouldn't do those things, especially to an officer of the law.
Exactly.
And when someone does that, what do? You arrest the person, put the person. So if you take it, you don't now come and turn around and tell me that, but why did you offer me the bribe? I get it. Both the one offering the bribe and the one taking the bribe are
But
wrong.
if you're being offered and you do not take, it ends there, right? And then you don't say, but you see I'm corrupt, but this other person too, you didn't check this other person, you didn't check that other person. But that is why I appreciate the position and the posture of the Judicial Service, represented by Justice Yoni Kulendi at the launch of the survey. I mean, his comment was quite refreshing that this is really a danger to our democracy and we must work together to, kill it.
Work it out. Let's get into the papers. The Daily Graphic. I have Daily Guide, Republic Press, The Finder, Daily Dispatch, Ghanaian Publisher, and the Accra Times. What do you have?
I have with me the Daily Graphic, the Daily Statesman, the Custodian. I've actually not seen this on the stands. And then the Ghanaian Times, of course, which has... So let me start with the Ghanaian Times, maybe, if you allow me. Because it has the picture of the IGP, and I just...
You want to get into that story quickly.
But the banner headline, Law Flouts Constitution, says Supreme Court, issuance of license to institutions to plant weed. Okay, so that's a Supreme Court ruling on this legalization of the cultivation of cannabis. And the President orders Sports Ministry, GFA, to partner old players to develop grassroots football. So that's on the front page. And of course, Speaker indefinitely defers decision of Adwoa-Safo. Surprisingly, they don't have the development last night. Maybe they had gone to press already.
Right.
And so that is not there. But Adwoa-Safo is definitely on the front page of the Daily Graphic. And it says Adwoa-Safo sacked. We have details. We'll bring that to you shortly. The cannabis story is also here. License for cannabis cultivation unconstitutional. Supreme Court and government releases 57.4 million CDs to the colleges of education. But the banner headline, which is very important, increase investment in domestic production. And I think this story is really, really important.
Maybe we can take a bit of that story.
Yeah, so this is agri-bodies to avert the imminent food crisis. It says that for agricultural sector groupings, 4 agricultural sector groupings have actually warned of imminent food crisis next year and urged the government to do more to increase investment in domestic food production to avert the crisis. The groupings, which form the largest segment of the agriculture sector, said the measures announced in the mid-year budget review to support stable food supply were commendable but inadequate to avert the danger of the crisis. They said the cost of cultivating an acre of cereals and legumes such as maize, rice, soya beans, and had shot up astronomically, which could hinder people's interest in food crops. In a separate interview with Daily Graphic in Accra in response to the media budget review, representatives of the 4 entities explained that the cost of items that affected the cost of production, including labor, fertilizer, agrochemicals, seed, planting materials, mechanization, and input component, had nearly tripled. I'm surprised they didn't mention the cost of transport, which is actually a huge component when it comes to the cost of food. And we've seen, even in our inflation, that food is a major driver of our inflation.
It is.
And yesterday in a conversation...
Food, fuel, transportation, generally.
Absolutely. And yesterday in a conversation, somebody actually mentioned, I'm not sure I have the permission to quote him, but he mentioned that if government could initiate a program that would get the foodstuffs from the farm gate to the major, markets.
Major hubs.
The major hubs. That perhaps would help reduce the cost of food, which would then go a long way to make food obviously affordable to the people, avert this crisis that we're talking about, and also reduce inflation. Because if what the Agric Minister says is anything to go by, we have enough food. The transportation of the food from the farm gate to the market, and of course from the major markets in the hinterlands to the cities, is actually the problem. I read a story where he says they're going to engage the market queens to see how they could control the price. I don't know how effective that will be because, these people...
I'll tell you, it will not work.
They are business people.
It will not work. We need better systems of control to ensure that the right things are done. And part, the start of what he said is a huge part of the problem. the link between the product from the farm to the market.
To the market.
A lot of the cost that we see on a lot of our products is because of what happens in between in conveying these food items from up north, from the middle belt and all of that to the southern sector.
And the saddest part of this is whilst we're struggling to get the foods to the markets, to the consumer, they end up perishing.
There are gluts in certain areas. Recently, I've forgotten where, they were talking about the fact that, look, our yams are getting rotten. They are there. They are selling one for about 7 cedis. Of course, they bring it down here, it's 25, 30 cedis. But they are there in their hundreds, thousands, rotting.
So that's really a problem. And you have still some farmers taking it outside the country. There's exports.
Oh yes, there's even smuggling.
And there's actually motivation for these exports because of the rate at which they're sold. And so these farmers, especially those in the northern part of the country, it's easy for them to use the borders, Burkina and all of you, to move the products out of the country.
Well, let's get into some. Are you done with the daily graphic?
Yes, but just a quick comment on the 57 million released to the colleges of education, and this is for food and also for the allowances. I'm told that it covers just about 2 months. So we are spending 57.4 million cedis on these two components. Benjamin, is it not time that we take some of these bold steps? I mean, it is important to encourage people to go to training colleges. It is true that school fees is really a problem, but can we really be innovative? I mean, we have IMF staring at us in the face, and we are spending so much in some of these areas. I think that we really would have to consider some of these things.
Some of these allowances we give, and I say this in the national interest, some of these allowances we give, and look, at some point you have to bite the bullet. Electricity, we had to take off some of the subsidies at a point. And now we're crippling ourselves because you see, it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. They take one thing away, and then the next thing they add. The other day at the mall, I sought a service from an IT company. It cost me about 200, just around 200 cedis. Do you know what the tax component was? NHIL, VAT, do you know how much it was? Over 30 cedis, almost 40 cedis.
It's such an...
So the service is about 160 cedis. The tax component alone, levies and all of that, almost 40 cedis. Why?
Yeah. So I really think that we need to take another look at these monies, these allowances, and take the very tough decisions and we should get funding from elsewhere, or get parents to simply support the awards. It may be difficult, but I mean, you and I, we went to public universities.
Exactly.
We didn't have allowances. At the end of our 4-year study, we weren't assured jobs by government.
Nope. But look at how we turned out.
Yeah, and so, I mean, if you know that the security of, the government would absorb these teachers, these nurses, definitely. We know that there are lacks in terms of the absorption, but it happens anyways. And so if we're able to...
See, once you create a system where people feel entitled to some of these things, they will ask for it. And again, the game of politics, once you make certain promises, people will hold you to your promise.
Yeah.
Once you've said that, you deal with it. The Daily Guide newspaper, after SCN, 2 others face judgment November 17. NPP chalks 30, pledges to overcome development challenges. Congratulations to the MPP, 30 years of being in existence. Police snap corruption tag. Collins Dauda, others trial for October, and Manya Krobo MP charged with illegal connection. 2 quick stories I want us to take a quick look at. In fact, 3. Kenyan running mate, I'm going outside the country now, loses $1.7 million to state over fraud. The running mate of leading Kenyan presidential candidate William Ruto has lost $1.7 million, the equivalent of £1.4 million, after a court ruled that the money held in 4 accounts at the local bank came from proceeds of corruption. We can cry all we want about, Kenya also has its own problems. I know, they also have corruption to deal with. But some of the things that happen, I saw a minister, heard of a minister way back, dealt with, brutally. Even in South Africa, I've heard say, here, some of these things
Is it related to campaign financing in any way?
So let's get the details there.
Because that would be
Justice Minor ruled that Rigathi Gachagua received the money from government agencies, but there was no evidence that he had supplied anything. So it has to do with, public procurement, supply, and all of that. Then in my next story, CD hits fresh low on page 9. The local currency lost further ground against the dollar this week, trading at 8.27, a new record low from 8.13 at last week's close. That came after the Bank of Ghana this week held rates at 19%, ending the 9 months of consecutive tightening amid concerns of slower growth and worsening economic conditions. That's the second one. So recently, the cedi got into the 7-point-something region. Now it's slipped back into 8-point-something. In fact, 8.27 as of now. And when you are,
I mean, the fundamentals remain the same, and so it's really an effect of what happens on the international market and the, I mean, how this hits our economy. Really, it's just back to that. And so we may make marginal gains, but once we do not correct the systemic issues, we'll definitely go back. But there's a story here. Are you done with it?
Let me wrap. La Liga chief wants Ronaldo back, and Javier Tebas has said he would welcome the return of Cristiano Ronaldo to Spain. There's been the suggestion that maybe he could head to Atletico Madrid, but
how
I don't know about. No, he said he would want Ronaldo back in La Liga. Of course, you know what Ronaldo comes with, everything, the presence. When they lost both Ronaldo and Messi, it was quite a blow that they've not recovered from.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it goes and whether he will actually leave
that's actually what we should be
after the latest talks with Alex Ferguson. But let's get into the statement.
Yeah, so the Daily Statement has on the front page, NPA boss to drive dialogue at Africa Energy Week, and NSS to champion maize, rice and beans production. That's interesting. I mean, talking about food production and the crisis that these agri-bodies warn us about. Anyway, Benjamin, I mean, when I went to school, we didn't have anything like school farms.
Oh, I did. My school, we had farms. We farmed, Bishop Herman back then. You would do a lot of disco weeding. We call it disco weeding.
Okay.
Dawn and
I mean, we did weeding, but I mean, this was just...
No, I mean farms, like farms. Of course, apart from the hockey pitch and other places that you would weed on the campus, we had farms. And that is another thing that people have pointed to. So it made these schools a bit self-sufficient.
Exactly.
You were farming yam, maize,
and
basic things. And these are things that we use. Maize, you are doing your banku and all other, most of our staples,
so
yam.
If you have
and
maize taken off, the table, I mean, in terms of money spent to procure food for these schools, that would be such a huge relief. So maybe we should consider doing that. I mean, the NSS is going to lead in maize and rice as well as soya bean production. Let's see how that pans out. The NPP is here again. The General Secretary is quoted as saying, we shall overcome the hardship. And I must say that his response to the survey yesterday was quite refreshing. I mean, he says, well, if people say that we are the least trusted, it must be because of the current economic conditions. Right. Once things improve, I'm sure our ratings will go up. And it was
the question is, will things improve? Looking at the economic trajectory we're on, looking at where we're headed to the IMF, looking at debt sustainability, looking at how much the economy has shrunk. I mean,
when he appeared on PM Express, he actually said that they were hopeful they were going to turn things around within 2 years. The finance minister, interestingly,
he said 2.5.
2.5 years.
2.5 years.
That's the finance minister.
The finance minister.
Okay. Well, Kodja says 2 years. He's hopeful that before the elections, they would have something good to campaign on. So let's see. I mean, once it gets better, it is for all of us. So we really wish government well. All of us will play our role, and let's see how that actually pans out. GES directed to fast track payment of new teachers, and there you go. So, I mean, the teachers have issues, definitely, and the GS must live up to the billing. So that's it on the front page of the Daily Statement.
I'll do two papers very quickly. We have just about 5 minutes more to go. Let's see how we can manage that. Chinese galamseyas grabbed in Kwewu, Republic Press says so. And this issue of, the other day I was having an interaction with the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Samuel Abu-Baidoo, and making mention of the latest, statistics we have. Hundreds of Ghanaians caught, most of them behind bars. Hundreds, thousands of Chinese, if you like, if not at least hundreds, caught, only 2 behind bars. And you ask yourself, what discriminatory, actions these are. You remember Aisha Huang, you remember the others, and our Rosewood, and our mineral resources, and all of that. So it appears even in our justicial system, somehow we find ways of discriminating. And those infamous comments, if you remember, by Senior Minister Osafo Mafo, concerning this bit and throwing her...
It had economic consequence, and, China... By the way, the Sino Hydro project. What's happening to it?
You might have to ask government. You remember what we did on this many months ago?
Yeah. Evans did a recall of the project. So I think that we have to be fair to our own citizens. The law is the law.
Right.
If there's no such agreement with any other country on how we prosecute their nationals, I think that they must go through the mill and face the law.
Right.
But the minister I think he told you that they're going to probe into the issues. I don't know how they're going to do that and when they're going to give us some response, but we'll have to follow up.
Time will tell. Yeah. Minority blows alarm over alleged procurement infractions at Bost. You know that story. Yeah. And 39 million turning into 70-something million Ghana cedis. But, of course, Bost has also come out to debunk those. The Finder newspaper, chaotic scramble for Ghana card to register SIM cards. Look, yesterday, my mother was at LWAC, my close to 70-year-old mother, chasing a Ghana card. Also because she needs to renew, and through no fault of hers.
Yeah.
For years. Apparently, she went through the process, so she has a number and everything, but the card was simply not printed. It cannot be traced. And we've gone through bloody hell. I'm sorry I had to use that on air, just to get that. And this is where sometimes it's maddening, it's mind-boggling. You don't have all of this. There are about 6 million people, Ghanaians, who have not gone through the system, who don't have the Ghana cards. How do they register for their SIM cards and all of that? I mean, and you have old people. Have you ever been to LWAC?
I haven't been there, but I've seen
the
videos, and as we speak, we have scores of people, hundreds, I should say, masked up already at the LWAC Stadium because they're racing against
people get there at dawn
to have their SIM cards registered. And so getting registered for the Ghana card is one aspect of it. There are people who have actually registered but do not have the card.
Exactly.
So that's another category of people over there. And then there are people who have the card, but getting themselves registered is a problem. Myself, I have my MTN registered. The other number, it's not registered, so I'll have to find a way.
I had to, thankfully at church, they had some drives. So I got 2 of my chips registered there. And I think the last one, I got registered here. The multimedia group, was generous enough to organize this. And I got the other one.
At the time, I didn't have my Ghana card, so I couldn't register. But subsequently, I did, and I have registered one of the SIM cards. I should register the other one soon.
Let me just do the Daily Dispatch newspaper. A report on why Dominic Kwabenya's seat should be declared vacant. That story on page 2. NPA boss, Dr. Abdul Hamid, to discuss Ghana's downstream sector at South African conference. And Supreme Court declares as unconstitutional law on growing weed in Ghana. Over to you.
Yes.
As we get ready to wrap.
Yes, the custodian has stories that we've dealt with. We'll get back. We'll back government to tackle the hardships. That's the General Secretary of the NPP, Justin Kodua. The IGP is also here. Police rubbishes the GSS Shraj survey on corruption. And you have John Jinapo here. Boss dismisses NDC's claims on office building. It comes with Provencal, Mr. Edwin Provencal, the Boss MD. And the NPA is also here. Promotes petroleum downstream in Africa. It comes with Dr. Mustafa Abdul Hamid, who is the NPA boss. So these are the stories in the custodian. There's some football here as well, so you want to grab a copy of that. President Samia changes 10 regional commissioners, drops 9 in latest appointments. That's some foreign news for you. And so just get a copy of this, and you will get yourself updated. Benjamin?
I'll wrap with the Accra Times and some interesting stories. So, favoritism, nepotism takeover at GIS as Jubilee House caught in a contract extension web. There's take progressive steps towards an inclusive system of governance. Bagman tasks CSOs. But 2 stories I want us to look at. Cadman Mills blasts Kwaku Anyidaho, describes him as an element of division and controversy. And there's also Ghana card versus interchanges. Che Mensah snubs Baumia, leads Parliament to approve a loan facility for the Swami interchange. So people have been, the diabolical, What is your quick take on these 2 matters?
On the interchange?
On the interchange, and maybe the swiftness with which Kwaku Anyidaho changed the Atta Mills Institute to Kwaku Anyidaho Institute.
I don't know.
Very quickly on that. We have less.
So Kwaku has changed the name. Would that necessarily take away the controversy? And would that, leave the former president, his former boss, to rest in peace? it depends on really how he goes about it.
I think the former president must be shifting in his grave, looking at all these things happening, you know,
and for
after
a man of peace, it's interesting how we mark his passing, 10 years of his passing.
With a lot of turmoil.
And that's very unfortunate. On the interchanges, well, the Ghana card may be good, but we definitely need the interchanges. So, Chairman's on this, yeah, if I were in Swami, I would support him.
All right. Yaswa, intino, afe, yedi besiko. From the Swami's end of things. But thank you for staying with us, Ernest. I enjoyed this. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And I see that those
the award-winning morning show. My pleasure.
Yeah, we come and do this for good reason.
Yeah.
It's been a privilege sitting with you this morning. Thank you. Well, up next, stay with us for sports. Later on, we'll be getting into our big stories. Do stay.
It started off as a complaint from one of the residents in this community.
Resania almost sober. Resania almost sober. A dime way and Qualegum. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about.
So we had to come and check for ourselves how this is developing. This is Amre here. It's a place where I'm told Dr. Kwame Nkrumah took from the family for agricultural purposes. So we have the dairy farms here. But as time went on, some people have turned this place into a place where they win topsoil. Now, because of heavy trucks, anytime they pass here, and because of how loose the topsoil is, it just blows away and into their homes.
We can't open our windows. The road and our building is just a stone throw, and we can't open our windows. We can't cook because my cylinder is inside. Risk, so we cook outside. Dust. I just gave birth to a little baby. She's only six months, and she couldn't breathe. She was just like asthma attack. It's very hectic. The road, we had constructed gutters. They blocked the gutters. We've taken videos of it. We started. We said we were doing how do you call it? Road speed ramps. Still, they came to remove everything, fighting us with land guards and all that. And also police, we've reported to the police station, everything. We don't know what to do. There are kids inside this house, shops around and everything. It's too much. They come even at night sometimes. Midnight. They start around 4. At times 2 a.m. At times 2 a.m. They'll pack their cars and the engine will be on, and it's too much. It's too much. Aside from the dust, the noise. Just look at where the road is and where my window is. The noise. When my baby is asleep. No, sorry.
If you look at the palm tree behind us, tells you how devastating this pollution is. You ask yourself, but for the palm tree, where would have the dust on it settled? The container in front of the palm tree, we are told, is a tailoring shop. Because of the dust pollution, the owner, Isaac Kofi, has stopped operations.
Somewhere last year, September, we saw some official cars coming to Daily Farms area there. A lot of them, when they come, they go. They came, they go. They came, they go. Unfortunately, we saw a bulldozer which came and entered the place. We don't know, they didn't inform the residents here. We don't know what is going on. Because when I came here, it's about 20 years ago. This way, nobody has tempted that area. We all know that it's a farm made by Dr. Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah. But unfortunately, they started digging the place, then the dust coming into our houses. You can't dry your things. When you wash, you can't dry. Our rooms are everywhere. The children, in fact, we are suffering. We are suffering. The cars in the night about 2 a.m. Then they start coming. When they started, they do day and night. And so sometimes it became only day. In the night, when they reach here, they will be blowing the horn. Then the noise of the vehicle will also be applying. They made bang, 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 beep, 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 beep. Oh, in fact, we can't sleep. They disturb us. The children, especially the children. So this is our problem.
Some of the residents have been sharing with us their sides of the story. One man in particular said his wife has been complaining of sinuses since the beginning of the year, and they suspect it is as a result of the pollution in this area.
I live about 2 blocks away, and yet we have so much dust pollution in our house. Since the beginning of the year, my wife has been suffering from a sinuses problem with the dust inhalation. If you come to our house, the windows are all red. If you wash your car, by the following morning, it looks red. And I spoke with EPA, and clearly these people don't have a permit, because if they had one, they would have had to even erect a signpost with the EPA permit displayed. But as the people were telling you, sometimes they come and work in the night. So apart from the dust pollution, there's also noise pollution. In the middle of the night, you can hear the equipment and the movement of the tipper trucks. And it's just not acceptable. Nobody is preventing you from doing your business, but you have to also be mindful of the other citizens who also live here. And I call on the EPA to make sure they do the right thing. If they want to continue using this place, then they have to put gravel and on the road, and also water the place as regularly as the EPA will instruct them to do.
All that the residents here are asking for is for authorities to move in and to ensure that this pollution is stopped. But when will this solution come? Your guess is as good as mine. For JoyNews, from Amrehia, I am Samuel Kojo Brace.
Ghana for, thank you for staying with us on the AM show. This morning, I am upset. And as I share with you my blunt thoughts, I'm going to be talking about corruption. I've titled my piece today, Walking, Running, Swimming, and Drowning in Corruption, the sad situation of Ghana. Recently, Ghana for, there's been a lot of talk about Atta Mills and his legacy. All good, even considering the hypocrisy of some who now extol a man they denigrated every which way he turned. But while we fight over what was done, for a fondly remembered deceased president who himself wouldn't hurt a fly, corruption is whacking us black and blue. It's beating us silly. It actually gave me a good laugh recently when all sorts of people came out of the shadows to take on lawyer Martin Kpebu for calling out President Akufo-Addo for not tackling corruption. But wait, has the president, after the very loud gong of that NDA bribery was played, heard or not heard about it? Is Mr. President still uninformed? Oh, I get it. The fight against corruption is on pause. For now, we shall use the wait-and-see principle, not the Anas principle, which was touted, dangled tantalizingly before voters in 2016, when then candidate Akufo-Addo wanted power. Do you see why I have such a deep mistrust for our politicians, NDC and NPP? They tell you one thing, secure your vote, and do things that make you ask yourself, did I vote for leaders or for demons? Ghana, forget about the party politics. Let's set aside just for a moment our political lenses. When you look at how President Akufo-Addo has tackled corruption, that is, if I can even use the word tackled at all, would you say he has done anything really to stamp it out? We can talk about the PPA boss. He's chilling just fine. We can talk about Charles Bessu. He's doing just fine. Look what happened to Daniel Yao Domelevo. It was just disgraceful. Now, we have a special prosecutor who is also struggling. I honestly do not know whether he doesn't regret taking up the position now. I also do not know whether he will last there till the next election. Only time will tell. But you see, you set up an office to fight corruption, failed to constitute its board, without which crucial decisions can be made or cannot be made. For 10 months, you starve it of funds, and human resource, and you say you've done something. It's just a charade, an empty show of a fight that is nothing more than shadow boxing. Fire, Ghana is on the mountain. There's trouble everywhere. Somebody please tell the vice president that we are suffering. Media people too are suffering. Apart from the harsh economic times, the censorship is drowning us. You say this, the next minute you're getting threats and calls. Ating. After repealing the criminal libel law, we have subtly snuck it into the fabric of our society so that even when you dare speak the truth, you have to keep watching over your shoulders. What crime have we committed? Why do my colleagues, the likes of Manasseh, Captain Smart, Caleb, Zoe, and others feel unsafe? Curiously, if these had happened during someone else's tenure, we would have screamed bloody blue murder. Fancy all this happening right under the nose of a lawyer known for human rights activism. Sigh. I guess feathers don't necessarily show you what bird you are getting anymore. If this is what human rights activism or an activist serves us to the point where Ahmed Hussein Swale was gunned down in cold blood for exposing corruption, which indicted the presidency itself, then I dare say we are lost. And when we sink 30 places on the Reporters Without Borders list, well, very conveniently, it's just because they changed their metrics. Then indeed, we have a lot to grapple with. You see, I have a whole lot on my mind that I want to reflect upon this morning. Perception and reality aren't the same, right? Well, now we have a reality check. Public, accountability is taking a new turn on that latest report that we have. 5 billion Ghana cedis in there, according to that latest report put together by Shraj. That is even more than what we're expecting from the e-levy, what it will rake in for us. All of that was lost to bribery and corruption in the last year alone. But hey, that might just be a warped reality, just as what we are now going from the IMF is a loan, not aid. I mean, are these people listening to themselves? Can they look themselves in the mirror? How do they manage to sleep at night, I ask? You know what? If this is what it takes to be a politician in this country, then though I am an astute student of politics, I would pass. You lie through your teeth without shame. You cannot speak the truth, even to save your life, and yet you even see them in church wearing white, hosting white handkerchiefs. Whom exactly are they deceiving? That's the question. Devils clad perpetually in white and smiling and feigning innocence, yet as dangerous as Egyptian asps, the typical brood of vipers, just as Jesus speaks of. Hypocrisy, sycophancy, selfishness, greed, and everything else that is evil have engulfed this country in a thick cloud, even while we construct a religious monstrosity of a cathedral. I suppose we forget that God lives really and truly in human hearts, not in buildings erected by human hands. Look, God works on good leaders. He tells these leaders, do righteousness and it will go well with you and your people. If it were simply about building places of worship for God, we'd be the most prosperous nation on earth. My checks reveal we have many more churches per square inch than most countries in the world. Yet what has our religiosity got us? We are as corrupt as ever. We steal from the mouths of the poor. We rant about how others have eaten the meat clean off the bones of the national purse. And when we are given the opportunity, what do? We not only eat the meat, but we break the bones as well and suck the marrow out of it. You who do this are a big disgrace. And building a cathedral will never cover up such wickedness. The servant may do whatever he pleases while the master is away. But when the master returns, then the servant will know who's really boss. Like we say, every day for thief man, one day for master. The day is coming when people will vomit all they have stolen from the living, the dead, and even the yet unborn. They will pay, I tell you, every last one of them. They will. It may seem to them for now that they will get away with everything they are doing, that no one sees them. But the eyes that see everything, those of the omniscient God, they do see, and their day of reckoning will surely come, even if now it appears to tarry. So let them create, loot, and share. So will curses be distributed among them and their families and their generations for the injustice they do their fellow men, women, and children. You divert funds for a contract just so you can get that latest V8 vehicle, while people have to pay for fuel just to get what is meant to be free emergency care in an ambulance. How does that make you feel? God richly bless you. May your descendants be richly blessed for your wickedness. And if you do not get my sarcasm, then you must be as daft as hell. When I look at the sheer arrogance in display in many corridors of power, I come to understand more and more why it was said that when the gods wish to destroy a man, they first make him crazy, allowing him to think he is something superhuman, far more powerful than he really is. And then they squish him into insignificance and oblivion like an ant trampled underfoot. That day is coming for many of these lying tongues and looting brigades. That day, sure as day and night, is fast coming. They will pay through their noses. They who have sowed the storm of evil against God's people will reap the whirlwind of his righteous anger. They can take me as a messenger or brand me as a naysayer, but time will show whether I speak the truth or whether they, rather, are justified in what they do. Time may tick slowly, second by second, but in that same way have centuries and millennia passed. Time catches up with everybody. Our leaders should never forget that. They should look at Sri Lanka and know the power of the people. Look, I'm not asking for barbarism. At the end of today's segment, I'll put something on the slides and then you will see. I'm just saying we are not radical enough, tasking our leaders to realize that we are dead serious about their corruption. And those who claim to want to fight it are actually doing so without what we want to see. We must make our leaders come to the realization, the very lucid realization, that they are simply failing and that if we want better, it is their responsibility to deliver that, not to loot what belongs to us. We should no longer pamper them with the title, honorable, honorable, when we, the masses, live dishonorably and die in penury. What kind of senseless leadership is that? What is the use of our leaders if they cannot or will not do what is expected of leaders? I'm going to digress a bit, but some things simply do not make any sense. Some 6 million Ghanaians, for example, my own mother included, through no fault of theirs, have no Ghana card. And we're talking of, cutting them off, blocking their accounts because they do not have SIM cards that have been registered. My almost 70-year-old mother yesterday had to queue at LWAC to go through even more hassle at the LWAC Stadium, all because of a card which she still hasn't got anyway. Why must everything be so down twisted and pleasant and corrupt in this country for the ordinary Ghanaian? Yet while we endure all of this nonsense, some people grow fat on our taxpayers' money and dare to steal from us as well by taking undue advantage of the positions we made possible for them to occupy. We all heard the DCOP of the police recently saying that, we are not the most corrupt institution. In fact, blame the ordinary citizens who offer bribes to the police. It is enticement, I agree. But does anyone compel the police to take bribes that are offered? If all police officers did the right thing and arrested, charged, and processed for court anyone trying to corrupt them, as it is against the law, do you think people would still dare to bribe them, or that the likelihood of same would be so high? The Ghana Police Service, while having some fine, incorruptible elements, has generally painted itself black with the paintbrush of corruption. The service did that all by itself. If it will reverse the trend, it must do so all by itself and not blame citizens for offering them bribes, nor blame institutions conducting surveys. When this rhetoric of corruption is itself as old as Adam, like I said, not all of them are frolicking on the bed of corruption, but there are many ways through which the Ghana Police Service demonstrates it cannot be counted on and that it is indeed corrupt. Recently, I had an experience. I reported it to the Police Professional Standards Bureau, together with a colleague of mine. Guess what happened? Till today, as I speak to you, I followed up on that matter, called and called and called. Nothing. They told me they needed to check the CCTV cameras and a whole lot of other things. You want to protect your own, but you expect that ordinary citizens should be responsible. How is that? You do this and expect that the perception when it comes to, the police service would be positive. You try at every turn to protect your own and fail to punish them when it is right to do so. But if it were an ordinary citizen, you would squeeze water out of stone. All of these breed impunity and fly in the face of the honesty you claim to possess as an institution. Public perception, mind you, is powerful. What you do, the people notice. Do what is right, and you will not have to shout on the rooftops that you are this or that. The people themselves will attest to it, period. When the late John Evans Atta Mills, one of my favorite leaders, Ghanaian leaders in this Fourth Republic, owing to his integrity and approach to leadership, lived among us and passed on in the line of duty, which one of us would have contested his penchant and pursuit of honesty, hard work, modesty, peacefulness, and general humanity? Because we watched and saw through his actions and ways what he stood for. Can we say same of our men and women in blue, the Ghana Police Service? Can we say same for our presidency today, our legislature, our judicial system? How can we even look ourselves in the faces when surveys reveal our three major arms of government are all in cahoots, rolling in the deep, so to speak, when it comes to their lack of integrity and general corruption? Whether perceived or real, well, this is what the latest Shroud report for me is so positive in the fight against graft, because for once we have a factual, not perceived report on goings-on concerning corruption, the spate of it, and just how much is lost to the state on the back of all of this. I shudder when I contemplate the president's recent response, or lack of it, to the NDA issue, and claims that because the OSP is on it, it's okay. Let me ask you, if the president had been in opposition still and attempting to be president, would he countenance a sitting president from the other side acting in like manner? So, is the president going by his words to use the ANAS principle of investigative journalism to expose and punish graft? You decide. Recently, I had an interaction with Dr. Mahama of the Vice President office. He told me when I asked him about whether the president was using the ANAS principle that, because of entrapment and all of that, basically in simple terms, no. That is what he told me. No. Dr. Mahama suggests the presidency is no longer going by the ANAS principle. So I ask, has the fight against corruption been thrown to the dogs then? Ghana, just pause for me. Ghana loses $3 billion to corruption every year, no less. According to the African Union estimates, Africa loses $140 billion. How long shall we take this? I am speaking like this morning, boiling, so passionate, because it makes absolutely no sense. And while we lose all these sums of money, we wallow in underdevelopment, and undevelopment. We're going to the IMF for $1.5 billion. If we stemmed the tide of corruption, how much more could we save and save our economy? Think about that. As I wrap, I want you to contemplate a few things with me. I'll go through this very quickly, so stay with me. According to the latest Afrobarometer survey on the level of corruption, just look at what is happening here. 2014, and when you see the black line, it refers to the expectation that corruption has decreased somewhat or a lot. When you see the orange one, it refers to an increment in corruption. Look at 2014. 8% thinking it had decreased. 83% thinking there was an increase. In 2017, there is a bit of a convergence. But you go to 2019 and you see the slump. 19% thinking it is decreasing, 53% thinking it is increasing. By 2022, only 6%, according to this survey, think it is going down. 77% of Ghanaians think it is on the upside. So who is corrupt? In that recent survey that we've been contemplating and which we're going to be speaking about shortly, the police service is the top 65% in terms of those who feel most or all of them are corrupt, and only 31% thinking some of them are corrupt. That is the mustard one. It is followed by the office of the presidency ignominiously Members of parliament, judges and magistrates, and of course, NGOs and the media are the least. In terms of perception of corruption among the police, judges, tax officials, you would realize that the trajectory hasn't changed much between 2008 and 2022, though it appears that when you look at the police, it is on an upward trajectory. When it comes to the perception of corruption at the presidency and among MPs, there too, you would see that there's been some sort of stability, but it is rising quite sharply in 2022. You would realize that the figures from 2008 all the way to around 2012 were stable. Then in 2014, an uptick right before the elections, 53%, a convergence there. And now we are looking at 55% and 54% in 2022. What did the survey also reveal about our pandemic-related corruption? Guess what? A lot of us felt, 44%, almost half the population felt that there was a lot of corruption in the pandemic era. Some, 28%, just a little, 11%. For those who felt there was no corruption, 6%, and 10% felt they did not know or did not have any reaction. We can also look at an evaluation of government's performance in fighting corruption. Those who feel government is performing fairly or very badly, just look at the trajectory. From 54% in 2012, now 85% in 2022. And from 43%, those who felt it was performing fairly or very well, 43% in 2012, now only 14% in 2022. That paints a picture. You look at the official impunity and equal treatment and self-censorship guide as well, and you see that officials who commit crimes go unpunished. Look at the statistic there. Often or always, look at the perception, 77%. And it's reflected through the rest. People treated unequally under the law. Competition between political parties leading to conflict. People having to be careful of what they say about politics. Look at the perception there, 67%. Ordinary people who break the law going unpunished. There you see the dynamic. So it is clear that when it comes to the power play, the ordinary person faces the brunt of it. Police officers, in terms of prevalence of corruption, like I stated, appear to be the most corrupt here, followed by all other officials, the Ghana Immigration Service, GRA, DVLA, prosecutors, judges, and more. But of course, we know that when it comes to the bit about the bribe sizes, they are right here. Police officers. And of course, we have Lands Commission officers at the top with 1,669, prosecutors, the GIS, among others. If you look at how acts of bribery are initiated, you would see that 6 out of 10 bribes are paid to public officials, and they are requested directly by those officials. The direct requests, over 59%, indirect requests, 15%, as a sign of appreciation, and our cultural elements also feed into this, over 14%, facilitating procedure, almost 5%, and it continues from there. But I want to end Ghana 4 with this, and it is very important. A 16th century painting, look at this carefully. This painting shows the skinning alive of a corrupt judge, Sesamnes, in the year 500 BC. Sesamnes was a corrupt royal judge at the time of Cambyses II in Persia. It was discovered that he took a bribe in court and passed an unfair judgment. As a consequence, the king ordered that he be arrested for his corruption and ordered that he be skinned alive. Before passing judgment, the king asked Sesamnes whom he wished to nominate as his successor. Sesamnes, in his greed, chose a son, Otanes. The king agreed and appointed Otanes to replace his father. He subsequently passed judgment and ordered that Sesamnes, his removed skin, should be used to upholster the seat on which the new judge would sit in court to remind him of the potential consequences of corruption. Otanes, in his deliberations, was forced to always remember that he was always sitting on the skin of his executed father. This helped to ensure fairness and equity in all his hearings, deliberations, and sentences. I feel, while I'm not supporting barbarism or attacking police or public officials, I feel we should be angry enough and put in place measures that make corrupt public officials feel the real pinch, because what they do affects and destroys us all. I hope that someday we'll get to the point where public officials will realize just what responsibility we lay on their shoulders and be honest in their dealings. Ghana deserves that. I deserve that. You deserve that. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. These are my blunt thoughts shared with you this Friday morning. Raw, hot, undiluted. God bless Ghana. Well, after all the talk, I'm back right here, and it's all about the latest corruption report commissioned by Shraj, worked on by the Ghana Statistical Service, and of course, with support from the UNODC. But it paints a certain picture, and one of the institutions that has not liked this report, so to speak, has been the Ghana Police Service. Of course, it has been the first one we've seen that has spoken about fact versus perception. The person who basically is at the helm of affairs at the Ghana Statistical Service, who spearheaded this, is here with us this morning for a conversation on what exactly the metrics were, what went into the report, the methodologies and all of that, and also to respond in a way to some of the accusations that have been leveled against this. We're pleased to give you, as we get into our big stories on corruption, Professor Samuel Kobina Enim. Prof, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Benjamin.
Thank you for joining the conversation.
Pleasure.
Let me ask you, first of all, what has the response been like? How have you felt on the back of this latest report? It's the first that I have seen in this republic that moves away from perception and says this is the reality. How do you feel about coming out with something like this?
To be honest with you, I'm quite excited. And the reason why I say that is we just don't want to be putting out statistical products for the sake of it. The whole idea is to generate public discourse on it, and hopefully it will get the attention of policymakers to say that this is what the public is concerned about, this is what is affecting our development, and then that would lead to the needed policy interventions. Because it's the first of its kind, we need to engage the public on the methodology that we use. So I'm pretty happy the police has raised some concerns, and it's exactly the reason why I've availed myself to speak exactly to how the computation was done.
Okay, and it's a crucial part because for any survey of this nature, the methodology is important. How many people are you sampling? What is the distribution, male, female? Where are you sampling them from? Is it representative of the general population? What are your metrics when it comes to the margins of error and all of that? All of these must be paid attention to, else you run the risk of your survey being poo-pooed or thrown into the garbage bin. So tell us, Ghanaians are watching you this morning. What exactly went into the methodology to make it watertight and meet international standards?
Benjamin, I think you started the conversation very well, because for any statistical product that we put out there, we make sure it goes through a quality assurance process. We make sure it follows scientific processes, and more importantly, it meets international standards. So for this particular survey, as you rightly indicated, it was initiated by the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. So when they approached us, we said, one, we've not done this before. We don't think when it comes to the data collection, it's going to be a challenge. We definitely can't do it, but we'll need technical advice in terms of how to make the exercise internationally comparable, knowing that it's one of the Sustainable Development Goals, specifically the 16.5.1, which measures prevalence of bribe payment. And this is what should be our starting point. The SDGs measures prevalence of bribe payment using the proportion of the population that have made contact with public officials over a period of time, specifically 12 months. So if you've not made contact with a public official, you are outside the domain for the computation. In our previous exercises where we did we did surveys related to corruption. We didn't use the denominator as people who had made contact with public official. And then once you've made contact and you had to pay bribe, or you were asked to pay bribe and you refused, that becomes your numerator. So we need to keep in contact that our preoccupation had to do with the public institutions that persons in Ghana make contact with.
Right.
And that is why the concern of Ghana Police on what institution is there, which institution is there, from our point of view, does not really matter, because the data is not from an institution point of view, the data is from a household point of view, and in each household, we identify an adult 18 years and older, and the first question we ask is whether you've made contact with a public official or not. So the first criteria...
A public official across the board.
A public official across the board. But keep in mind that we would want a representative number to make any statistical analysis. You cannot do statistical analysis with any number such as 10, 20, because once you have that number for the entire country, you wouldn't be able to do any disaggregation. So our first preoccupation was which public officials do persons in Ghana come into contact with?
Encounter the most.
Most often.
Right.
And that guided it. So we had representativeness from a regional point of view, but not necessarily representativeness across the over 300 institutions that we have in the country. So when we're doing the sample to arrive at the population, the factors that went into determining the sample size, which is 15,000 households, the type of institution was not part of it. Although our report comes out to say that within a particular institution, this is our finding on the prevalence of bribe payment. And that is why we see those institutions there. Indeed, we were very mindful of other institutions in Ghana. So if you look at our instrument, for instance, we have the last category, other public or civil service institutions. And the number that we get in there is very negligible, because most people make contact with the 23 institutions that we have in our report relative to the over 260 other institutions that we have in the country. And the other thing that we always need to take into account when we are doing this is, how do you make your work internationally comparable? If over time Ghana wants to do a country-specific assignment to look at all institutions, Ghana Statistical Service can do that. And that would not be looking at it necessarily from the household point of view. That would be looking at it from the institution's point of view.
Right.
So we'll list all the institutions, and then we'll ask ourselves the simple question, do you want to get this from a survey, or you want to get this from an administrative data source? So their concern on which institution is there, which institution is not there, from our point of view, was not a preoccupation.
Let's hold it right there for a bit, because yes, some feel aggrieved. You lumped up some institutions together for the purposes of this survey. In fact, in that police statement from page 1 of 5, point I, it says, it has been observed that the research did not cover some other public institutions such as the GPHA, the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, Audit Service, Parliamentary Service. It goes on, including the AG's department, the Registrar General's department. And in the second point, makes mention of the fact that even Shraj, which commissioned this, and your outfit, the Ghana Statistical Service, were not covered. How do you respond to that? I see that you're saying, yes, in future, we could look at different dynamics and broaden them. But why were your outfits, especially as you were spearheading this, not included?
So this goes back to what I said earlier on. When you are doing statistical data production, you need to ask yourself, what is your source of information? Our primary response target was not institutions. We didn't gather the data from institutions' point of view. We gathered the data from the public point of view. And the public, we chose the criteria whether you've made contact with a particular institution or not. So if out of our sample, you have, let's say, only 5 people making contact with the Narcotics Board, Ghana Statistical Service, TRAJ, how many of us come into contact with these institutions?
Right.
So statistically, you cannot make any inference based on that. It's statistically, you cannot do that. So if you want to specifically do something with audit, approach it and make it purposive for audit and gather all those who get into contact with audit. And that would be a different sampling approach. But if you want to have the prevalence of bribe payment for the entire country, your point of entry should be the population, not the institution. And this work has nothing to do with targeting one institution or the other.
Because definitely, I mean, the Ghana Police Service, for example, which has responded to this, others have not, but they have taken the time to respond, would feel that you were being selective in your approach, that you were feeding into a general stereotype. And they even talk about the fact that, look, like you've mentioned, the interactions with members of the Ghana Police Service, it's on a daily basis across the country. And so if you want to use any statistics, maybe you might want to, if you pick one from some institution and you pick one from them, looking at how broad they are spread across the country and the interactions every day. You have MTCD officers and all of that. It wouldn't be a fair picture to paint, whether maybe 5 officers are spoken to and one takes a bribe. You see those dynamics. And then they also mentioned, for example, that even in categorizing, disaggregating, if you like, only some sections of some institutions were covered. For example, the judicial service is not made up of only judges, like they point out. Lecturers, professors, and teachers are not the full component of the institutions they represent. How do you reflect on this bit?
So I think you've raised a number of issues, and let me step back to the first one in terms of how we went about it, how we involved the police in the process. To contextualize the questionnaire that we got from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, we set up a steering committee and a technical committee right from the questionnaire development stage through the analysis up to the release of the report. And the Ghana Police Service served on the steering committee. So they've been with the process throughout. The issue of aggregating some institutions and disaggregating some institutions goes back to what I said earlier on. So for instance, if you take GRA, where we sort of disaggregated, keep in mind that we want to put out a figure that is statistically significant. So if you get into the police, we can further do disaggregation across the different departments based on the type of service that warranted the payment of bribe. Simply because we have a huge number of persons in Ghana that are interacting with the police. If you take lecturers, teachers, based on the data that we have, once you disaggregate it, you cannot make any statistical inference out of it. And that is why we sort of put them together. We are not saying teachers are the same as lecturers, but the object of this work is to get what? Identify areas that have commonalities for policy intervention. So moving forward, that
is the crucial point, policy intervention, so that we can step in and know that, look, this is where it's heading. Institution X, Institution Y, and generally maybe the Office of the Special Prosecutor, Shraj and others, let's focus on these areas. That was the entire
Absolutely. So the Ministry of Education, for instance, can put in an intervention that covers both teachers and lecturers. So again, I'm emphasizing the preoccupation was not to say that this institution is doing well or this institution is not doing well. Coming back to the point that you raised on the contacts that the public make with police officials, and it's
versus
unfair,
those of other institutions.
It's unfair not taking into consideration the frequency. We are talking about a social issue that we want to eradicate. Once we start playing the game of, because the police encounters the public more often, you need to discount that effect when you are calculating prevalence. All that we are simply doing is to say that because they get into contact with the public more often, this percentage is okay. The computation of the prevalence makes one common assumption. Even if you make 10 contacts and I make 1 contact, you should not pay bribe. So you need to discount the number of contacts that you make with the public. And I'm repeating that again. Even if you make 10 contacts, or another institution has only 1 contact, the number of contacts should not be a justification for the payment of bribe.
Is that statistically accurate?
I wouldn't argue this from a statistical point of view. I would argue this.
Why not?
Because statistics should always operate within the context of a subject matter. That is why I preface that by saying that you want to eradicate something. If you are eradicating something, you don't give clauses that because the police engages more with the public, when you are calculating their prevalence, you need to discount the number of times that they engage with the public.
There should be no room for
we shouldn't do that. If you meet somebody 10 times, it doesn't mean that you were coerced to pay bribe. So then when you are calculating, you say that because you met the person 10 times, I am discounting that effect.
Right.
Statistically, it makes sense because once you meet the person more times, the likelihood of you being coerced to pay is very high relative to somebody who meets the public just once. But once you want to eradicate something like bribe, in the computation of prevalence, whether you've made contact 10 times or you've made contact once, SDGs International says that at least one contact should be the denominator, so that we don't make room for things like that, saying that we make more contact, that is why our bribe prevalence is high. Having said that, if you want to calculate the volume of bribe and think about how that affects the nation, then you take the frequency of bribe payment into consideration.
Right.
That is why of the people who pay bribe, we say that in a year, on the average, they do that 5 times. And that is what led us to computing the 17.4 million bribes that were paid in 2021, right, and subsequently the 5 billion bribes
Ghana
for 2021.
Which brings me to an interesting point. I'll get back to the police and what they say. But did you find it curious that the better educated people are, the more they are willing to pay bribes?
Not necessarily, for 2 reasons. One is, anytime you think about the prevalence, think about the contact rate. So the more educated, those with tertiary, engage the public official more than those with no formal education.
Exactly.
So that denominator would always have to be taken into consideration. And that is why we are seeing about the 1.6 times difference between those with tertiary education and those with no formal education. And the second one is the kind of services that those with tertiary education are in need of relative to those with no formal education. So the services and the number of contact that they make with public officials, from my point of view, it's what is driving the 1.6 times difference between no formal education and those with tertiary education.
When you look at point XI, 11 of the statement that the police puts out, they say, as you are aware, one of the major consequences of corruption is its ability to take away resources meant for socio-economic development for the benefit of all. Therefore, the value of the amount lost to corruption will play a key role in determining the prevalence of corruption and which institutions are causing the most harm when it comes to the sizes of bribes paid. Of course, you have a categorization there with the Lands Commission on top, I think over 1,600 CDs. When it comes to the actual amount. On that scorecard, the police is, in the lower tier when it comes to that. But do you feel, going beyond this, that you should be able to quantify out of the 5 billion Ghana cedis, for example, this went to the Ghana Police Service, as is suggested by this latest release from the GPS?
We definitely can quantify that. And from my point of view...
Is that something even based on this survey?
Yes.
You can do?
We can do that. The 5 billion, we can allocate it across the different institutions. Let me just quickly walk you through how we did that. So we are saying that 26.7% of the population paid bribe in 2021. Then out of this 26.7, based on those who have made contact, we looked at the average bribes that were paid, and that is what we said 5. So in the data, in the raw data, for each respondent, we have whether you paid bribe or whether you did not, whether you paid bribe or whether you did not. So it's a binary 0-1. If you do that, the per capita bribe payment is 0.98. So if you calculate 0.98 of the adult population 18 years and above, that is when we get, which is about 17.7 million.
Right.
This is where we get the 17.4 million bribes that were paid in 2021. At the national level, we got the average bribe payment of 348 Ghana cedis. So we can simply do this for the Ghana police. Their figure there is 220 Ghana cedis. We can calculate the average. We can calculate the per capita for those who paid bribe to Ghana police, and that will give us the share of payment of bribe out of the 5 billion for the country.
On the back of these questions raised by the IGP, is this something you would want to do? To break it down and put it out there? So we can all see, for example, when it comes to the Ghana Immigration Service, when it comes to maybe lecturers and all of that, judges, those in different components, when it comes to the Ghana Police Service, just to be fair, this is how much per our reality from the survey we know that went through their hands or was lost through corruption. Is that something you would, on the back of this, want to put out?
Two perspectives. In terms of our approach, what we're going to... I just held a meeting with Traj last Tuesday in terms of the next steps. And we've already written letters, we are yet to deliver them, to specific institutions that we want to engage. Our work is not just to create a conversation out of what we do. I said it initially. We wanted to generate a public discourse up to a point that policymakers would want to take up. So this specifically what you are asking, we are not going to do it and put it in the public domain because our interest is not just to rank and put institutions out there, but to get the institutions to act on them. So we are actually going to meet with the Ghana police, and with all that they've requested for, within the limits of the data, we're going to make it available to them to guide how they can curb the bribe payment that is happening within
which is part of, an integral part of what they actually ask for, because they're saying if you're saying this, then give us the right information so that we can work with it. But that brings to mind an interesting question. The Ghana Police Service, per this release, appears to say, we were not in the know about this thing you were doing, and all of a sudden you put this out. And in fact, the last point, the penultimate point they make, we want to place on record that we are passionate about this because the continuous empirically and scientifically unsubstantiated labeling of the police service as the most corrupt institution in the country only goes to feed this perception and damage the reputation of the service, as well as weaken the morale of its personnel. So 2 questions. How biased was this? I know you'll tell me about your plus or minus when it comes to the variables and the margin of error. But how biased could this report be? And tell us about the role the police played, because I know they were on the steering committee of this entire enterprise. Let's look at those 2 dynamics.
Okay, so the bias from an institution point of view, Ben, is 0. You can only talk about...
The bias is 0?
Is 0.
How can you guarantee
Yes. You only talk about bias if the variable in question is factored into your sampling approach. This is what I said earlier on.
Intentionally factored into...
Yes, it's part of your calculation. So we reach out to 15,000 households. Did institution play a role in arriving at that 15,000? No, because that was not the preoccupation. The factors that we took into consideration were as follows. Regional representativeness, so that we can generalize across all the 16 regions. We have 261 administrative regions. Given the size of some of the regions, we made them together. We arrived at 234 administrative districts.
Right.
And in each of the 234 administrative districts, we identified urban and rural areas, giving us 468 areas for enumeration. So the issue of institution was not a factor in the sampling. So any conversation around that is a non-starter.
Okay.
That is why I say the bias from an institution point of view is 0.
There was no bias.
There was no bias. There was no bias. But once you've done that and you have a question on which institution did you pay the bribe to, which institutions did you make contact with, and you have a good number, then you can go ahead and do regional disaggregation and whatever demographic disaggregation that you want to do. That is why we're able to do that for the Ghana Police Service and all the other institutions that you have there. Indeed, of the 23 institutions that you have there, for some of them, if we try going into further disaggregations, they wouldn't make any statistical meaning. Because the numbers are simply low.
Insignificant, basically.
You can't do anything.
And statistically, it means you can't even work with them.
No.
Because of the representativeness.
Exactly. I mean, if you have, that's what I say. If you have 5 for narcotics board, what can you do out of it?
Right.
If you put it into our 16 regions, what are you going to get? If you do male, female, 2, 3, 4, 1, what are you going to get? So we always need to be mindful of the statistical representativeness if you are doing analysis.
Let's look at the other point of stereotype, because they say that there's a stereotype already, and it appears you just fed into it. How much of a role does that play, the 6th point they make?
One is related to what you asked earlier on, Ben. If there is stereotype and you set up a steering committee and you have the Ghana Police Service represented on the steering committee, which is the highest decision making for this survey, isn't that an opportunity to address any concerns that you have. So I really don't see that argument. And the steering committee saw the final questionnaire. The steering committee
with the representation of the Ghana Police Service on the steering committee.
Yes.
They saw the final
the final instrument. The final instrument. Indeed, they had a sense of how the indicators were going to be computed. Because we discussed that at our steering committee.
And up to that point, there was no disputing, the questionnaire and how it would be.
Indeed, up until this letter, I had not heard anything.
Were you surprised then by this letter?
I was, simply because of the mode. Because I thought once the Ghana Police was part of the steering committee, if these concerns were there, we should have raised them as at that time. Even if it's an afterthought, which one would agree with it, I thought we should have discussed it and see how we can work with it and improve on it. And I got my letter around 3 p.m. yesterday, and this was in the news a couple of days back.
But how did that make you feel? You hadn't been, this is on an institutional level. So you would have expected that institution to institution, oh, my brother, these are our sentiments about what happened. How do you explain these to us? But it was put in the public domain, and you officially only got this statement yesterday at 3 p.m. Okay.
No, Ben, I appreciate the challenges with people accepting statistical results, especially when they are not privy to the methodology. So I would really request for a meeting with top management of Ghana Police, do a formal, in-depth presentation to them on the processes, and then we see how we can make good use of this report.
Do you feel if that had been done, maybe this would not have been necessary?
In my mind, it was done because the Ghana Police was part of the steering committee.
So maybe was there a communication gap? Was it that maybe the representative there did not communicate the right information to the hierarchy of the police service? For which reason we see this? Because obviously there was some lack of communication.
I wouldn't want to speak on that because I'm not privy to that information. But the bottom line is that the Ghana Police was represented throughout the processes. During the lunch, the Ghana Police was represented at the lunch. We didn't hear anything. We launched this on the 20th of July to only hear something on the 28th that the Ghana Police is not happy with the methodological approach. And that is what we find a bit unsettling.
Are there any lessons, though, while you talk about the fact that statistically you did everything right as far as this survey is concerned? Are there any lessons you can pick from this 5-page document from the Ghana Police Service? Are there any things they've averted your mind to that you would want to consider moving forward? Because I don't think this would be the last of these reports. I would want to assume that since we started off on this trajectory for the first time of having a rock-solid empirical, if you like, though there are disputations about it, survey of this nature, moving forward, we'll want to do more. Are there any lessons you are gleaning from this piece that you would want to, infuse into your future surveys?
So Ben, let me start with institutionalizing this survey, and we really count on the media to help us campaign so that we get resources to do this work at least every 2 or 3 years. That's the only instance where we can measure the progress, if any, that we are making towards curbing corruption in the country. In terms of lessons, I'll say that a couple have run through my mind since I read this, and one is the engagement with media. We did that in the census. We didn't do that extensively for this corruption survey, where we walk media through the methodological approach, the different sources of data that we need to have a comprehensive idea of what is happening around the issue of corruption. And then once that is done, we go ahead and engage them on the results. We had planned to do it after the results, but given what has just happened, I'm sure if the media were fully aware ahead of the methodological details that we put through, I wouldn't have been here speaking to the issue because you would appreciate what we need to do. I think on the side of the Ghana Police and other institutions that may feel that we've just put them out there, that engagement that we plan post the release also would have to be done prior to the release and get them to say that this is what we are doing, this is what is likely to come out, but the policy interventions that we expect you to get out of this report should be identified in the following areas, and this is how we need to manage the results. And then thirdly, I think the public in general needs education, because sometimes, and at the release, Ben, I said one thing: we shouldn't carry one figure and run away with it. The methodological guide for this exercise, it's on Ghana Statistical Service website. The questionnaire is on Ghana Statistical Service website. And I'm sure a number of people have not read the methodological guide, have not even seen the questionnaire, and they just pick one figure, police, and run with it. Police is number one. Why would somebody even think about ranking to the extent that you say it's selective ranking? It's neither here nor there, because we did institution-specific computation of prevalence. And the prevalence of the Ghana Police Service is the highest. It doesn't necessarily mean that we are doing ranking and say that this is doing well and this is not doing well. Especially when you know that it's based on contact, it's based on other factors in terms of their dominance across the country, the kind of engagement that they do. There are so many factors that should be taken into consideration before one thinks about ranking. And there's nowhere in our report that we use the word ranking. But now this is what the general public is using as the top story. Police is number one when it comes to bribe payment. I don't think it's very helpful in that regard.
Let's talk about a few more issues, and then we shall wrap the conversation. Is there anything, you oversaw this entire, you spearheaded this, but is there anything in the report that even you found surprising?
I always look at issues from the numbers point of view rather than from the issue point of view, and again with the policy eye. With all this that we're talking about, Ben, nobody is talking about the 3% of the people who report bribe payment. And for me, the 3% is worrying. Everybody is thinking about what government should do.
Right. How about the people in there?
The people. And I always say that the statistics that we put out there is not only for government to put out policies, but we should begin to learn lessons that if we don't report, simply because we think if we report, nothing is going to come out of it, simply because we think it is the norm, then collectively we cannot solve this issue. So that 3% for me is very striking, and it's something that we need public education on, especially the definition of what corruption is, the timing of it, whether it was given out before the assignment, during the service delivery, or after the service delivery. And as you were rightly saying, whether it was initiated by the person in the public or it was a direct request
from the public office.
And in our questionnaire, we excluded those who give small amounts of monies to the public official way after the service had been delivered. So it is not a kind of appreciation that we are talking about here.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay.
So
I get what that represents.
These are the details that we all should know, that when the service is being delivered or prior to the service, you don't go give out if you are not asked. Because once you do that, it doesn't satisfy our cultural norms when it comes to the conversation on bribe payment.
Right.
So if you want to satisfy our cultural norms,
it's post the fact.
Post.
Okay.
Service has been delivered and it wasn't at the instance of the public official.
But there's a danger in there, because in some instances, I would want to believe corrupt officials would also say, I'll do it for you, maybe for trust. I'll do it for you. After I'm done, you give me something. So those dynamics would also fit in.
Once the conversation starts, sorry, I'm cutting in, Ben. Once the conversation starts, then it's corrupt. And I'm not a legal
Okay, so that is clear.
Yes. And they go ahead and even say that if there is the tendency of subsequent service delivery, the definition of after the service has been delivered should be looked at carefully. Because if you do something in 2014 and you know that in 2017, like Ghana Statistical Service, we've done a census, we're definitely going to do it in 10 years' time. And in between, you know that you are going to receive this or you are going to give this to this person, knowing that in 2010, they will have to come back to you again. Once that is established, then it doesn't qualify with the definition that we use for the data collection.
Okay, two quick issues. I want us to address this very briefly. Now, we've started this, but it's all about money. Without the UNODC, we probably wouldn't have this report. Moving forward, how do we institutionalize this? What are you going to do? Are you going to call on government, for example, to maybe fund this moving forward? How much even went into this, if I may ask?
So in total, we spent about 6 million Ghana cedis, but obviously this had a component of the expenditure from the UN ODC side because of the technical support that they provided. But once we are doing this by ourselves, we think something within the region of 5 million Ghana cedis should be able to run a survey like this. We've already.
Is that something you would push for, maybe moving forward every year for maybe government as part of what it gives the Ghana Statistical Service to factor this into your budget so that you can keep up with these reports, factual reports, so that it can also keep us on our toes? Because look, 5 million Ghana cedis versus 5 billion lost in corruption. That is a drop in a bucket. What's that? 1%?
Yeah.
1%. Yeah.
No, 10%.
10%.
Yeah, so we've already started conversations on that. Unfortunately, the conversations are from the international development partners' point of view. What we're going to do together with Traj is to approach the Minister for Finance to see what government can do in terms of whether every year or every 2 years. What I seek to achieve is a conversation on it has to be institutionalized. Then the second issue would be how regularly do you want to do it? Every year, 2 years, or 3 years? And Ben, to be honest with you, I'm pretty flexible, anything within 1 to 3 years. The ideal would be 1 year every time, but it might put a lot of pressure on the government, knowing that there are other equally important surveys that we need to do. But once Ghana takes hold of this, then all these other concerns that are coming up, whether the data is from the household, the data is from the institution, these institutions are left out, it is our work, we would have control over it and make it address our needs. Because as we speak, I hypothesize that the 5 billion is underestimation of what potentially might be happening. On the backdrop that the average figure for bribe payment over the whole year is 348 per bribe payer, which I think it's pretty much on the low side, given what anecdotally we hear people saying when it comes to bribe payment.
So basically, just to reiterate, you're going to be meeting soon with the hierarchy of the Ghana Police Service to deliberate on this. Formally, have you invited them? Have they invited
No, as I said,
them?
I got a letter just 3 p.m. yesterday.
Okay.
I need to engage with Traj. We're going to call for a steering committee meeting, and the Ghana Police hopefully will be at the steering committee meeting, and then we'll deliberate further on the right approach to use. In my mind, we need to use the representative of the Ghana Police at the steering committee as the conduit in reaching the management of Ghana Police. And I hope that will be hastening to bring this issue to an amicable end.
To wrap everything, Prof, I cannot do this without doing this. It would be remiss of me. The inflationary rate has been, I know this is not part of the conversation, but I can't have the government statistician here and not put this up. It's been galloping. We've seen some of the highest rates. In fact, someone made mention of the fact that the 29.8% we're seeing now is the same we saw in around 2003 when we went hipping. Are we to expect anything better in the next inflationary setting? I mean, I know you use quite a basket, over 200 items and all of that. What do you see? What are your projections that you can share with us? Okay, so I'll speak as a non-statistician, as a Ghanaian, passionate about what is happening, and use the word we're hoping that it tapers, because we all know the implications of high inflation rate on all the other macroeconomic variables. What we are always worried about when we are speaking to inflation is the data is collected in the first week of the month. So in August, we're going to release inflation figure for July, and as I said, which was collected in the first week of July. If policy interventions had an impact after the first week of July, we wouldn't see its effect. Yesterday, I was hearing potential drops in some essential commodities moving forward. All those things would have an effect sometime in the next 2 months or 3 months. But the science clearly shows that the rate at which we're seeing the increases have reduced. And one of the major drivers for the inflation, which is transport, has seen a relatively stable rates in the last couple of months. So we are hoping that, coupled with the harvest that we are seeing or from the rains, we might be seeing something that would be appealing to all of us. Prof. Yadawasi Bebree, thank you so much for joining the conversation this morning. Just stay with us. And that has been Professor Samuel Kopina Enim, who graciously has taken the time to be with us this morning and set the records straight. He's also mentioned that he's going to be conferring with the Ghana Police Service to map the way forward. Well, stay with us. We'll be bringing you an analysis of the Global Info Analytics report that indicates that some high-profile members of parliament risk losing their seats. What exactly are the factors? What could account for this? All of that and more on the AM show up next. Do stay. Welcome. Thank you for staying with us on the AM show. And for those of you who are now joining, welcome aboard. We've been here talking a lot about a number of matters, but right now we're talking about members of parliament at risk, among other matters, events from the latest Global Info Analytics. Joining me, Bernice Abu-Baidoo at Lansah. Good morning, Bernice.
Good morning, Benjamin. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So like Benjamin rightly said, we'll be delving into that conversation, focusing on which MPs are safe or which MPs are at risk of losing the coming elections. We'll also be talking about absenteeism in Parliament. You may have heard, top of that list, Sarah Adjoa-Safo, who we know has been sacked as Gender Minister. We are not too sure what will happen to her seat in Parliament because the Speaker says he needs time, he can't rush his decision with this. And so we're still waiting. But the interesting thing is that it's not just her, it's not just Kennedy Agyapong, and it's not just Mr. Henry Quartey. There are a number of them. So the big question is, why does it appear that we are picking and choosing? We'll be delving into that discussion with Udikro, which has done some work in that regard. Before we start our conversation, let me just bring this information to you. The attention of World Vision has been drawn to a live television broadcast by a group of people operating under the names World Vision Fund Club and World Vision Foundation on Energy TV and ABTV satellite television stations since June 28, 2022. A review of the video recordings of the programs indicates that these groups are using the logo and some images of World Vision with a view to getting interested people to register with various amounts of money in return for corresponding financial support. World Vision is concerned that its logo and images are being used by the so-called World Vision Fund Club and World Vision Foundation to collect money from the unsuspecting public. World Vision therefore disassociates itself from the so-called World Vision Fund Club and World Vision Foundation and their operations and wishes to caution the general public as such. It's calling on members of the World Vision Fund Club and World Vision Foundation to desist from using its logo, images, and any other material for their activities forthwith. World Vision is a Christian relief development and advocacy organization dedicated to working with children, families, and communities to overcome poverty and injustice. World Vision has been working in all regions of Ghana for the past 42 years. For more information on World Vision Ghana, kindly visit its website. So we'll just kickstart our conversation, and we've got our guests in studio, and an analysis of the Global Info Analytics report, as I've already mentioned, indicates that some high-profile members of parliament are at risk of losing their seats. Who are these, and what will account for this if it does turn up to, come into reality? So you see there a couple of MPs. So let me just bring you some key personalities. This is Global Info Analytics, NPP seat at risk. All right. So this is Yawase Duchuman. We know he's MP for the Bosumtwi constituency. In 2020, 84.80% was, that's the approval rate, right?
That was the vote.
The votes he was able to pull, and the margin was 69.60%. So look at what is happening now. Likelihood of re-electing an MP. 40%, 11% for the NPP, and 49%. And then for the NDC, 24%, 5%, and 71%. We've got Musa Dankwa, who's Executive Director of Global Analytics. So there is some interpretation to these colors, right?
Yes.
So blue is for?
People who are unlikely to vote for the MP, the deep blue, navy blue.
Okay.
Unlikely to vote for the MP. And the light blue, likely or very likely to vote for the MP. Now, in analyzing this kind of result, look at what people are saying on other issues.
Okay.
If you take the constituency, for example, right direction is 20%.
Sorry, I mean, the gray means neutral, right?
Yeah, neutral.
Yeah, so that
gray
we
means
just said,
neutral. Yes,
okay.
yes. And then the approval of the president in that context is also very important because sometimes that approval rating could reverberate and affect the MP. In the MP, the president is on 14% approval, 85% disapproval. Now you look at the party affiliation of the people we interviewed in that area. Most of them are MPP, 67% are MPP. Okay. NDC 26%, floating voters 4 and others 4. Now you look at people who are going to vote for the MP in the constituency. 34% said they will vote for him across all party lines, all voters, 34%. 58% are saying they are unlikely to vote for him, whereas 8 are neutral.
So,
now,
I mean,
the catch is that if you look at his own party within MPP, that's the first graph, only 40% of MPP affiliates said they would vote for him.
Okay.
Compared to 49% of MPP affiliates.
Who said you're unlikely to vote for him. Right, let me just find out, because you do the NDC and then you do the head-to-head analysis. That's for Dr. Baumia, Tremating, and Mahama. But we don't know who you used as an NDC likely MP. Do you use...
No, that's what I want to explain. These are general voters who said they would not vote for the MP. So if you look at the NDC column, the 71% are people who said they wouldn't vote for the current MP, the incumbent.
Okay.
And then 24 said they would vote for him. So we are looking at the overall, his likelihood in the context of MPP voters and NDC voters.
Okay.
We're not matching him against any NDC or MPP candidate.
Okay.
It's just him and him alone.
Interesting. I'd like to see, do you have anything done for Sarah Adjoa-Safo?
Not this time.
It would have been interesting to see how it will play into all that we are seeing happening now. But let me just mention that we've got Kina Likimani, who is Programs Manager of Odikro, joining us via Zoom. And she'll be joining us when we delve into the issue of absenteeism. And she's joined us. She's currently online, listening in as we start the conversation. Good morning to you, ma'am, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, and thanks for having Odikro.
Great.
We also have Same Obeng joining the conversation when we have him. We'll also have him give his responses. But an interesting picture you paint. Bosomtwe is a stronghold of the NPP.
Yes.
That is clear. And from these statistics, when you talk about the 40%, even within the NPP respondents who say they would vote for the Honorable Education Minister, Yawase Duchu. And then you come and look at those who say they will not. What picture does that really paint? I mean, those in between are just 11%. Yeah. But looking at his popularity levels in the last election, what he got, and then the 2020 result, he got 84.8% of the vote. The margin was 69.6%. That is gargantuan.
Yes.
Looking at what this 40% versus 49% paints, I mean, if you do 49% of the entirety of the sum, it would be, that would leave him with what, some 30-something plus percent. How does this play out?
So what we are saying is that he is struggling currently within MPP, which may translate into the primaries, which means that when he comes home to fight for re-election, he could have a challenge because the people in the constituency may not want to vote for him as an MP. But once he's able to cross that primaries hurdle, he will be okay in the general election. We don't expect the NDC to win this seat at all. But he has to struggle to bring his party behind him in the constituency. If somebody should contest him right now in that area, it could be a tough fight because generally people are showing displeasure.
I'll bring in some other, because the names I am seeing here, Manchia South, Napo, you're looking at Kweku Kwating, who is also an incumbent MP for Ejiso, who is also...
John Kuma.
John Kuma, I beg your pardon, who is incumbent MP for Ejiso, and also on the Finance Committee of Parliament, in fact, Deputy Finance Minister and all of that. You would see that the seats at risk, Ablekuma North, the young person there. But we'll get into all of these. Let
me bring in the issue of absenteeism here. And I'm looking at the report put together by Odikro, and it focused on the first meeting of the second session of the 8th Parliament from January to April 2022. And so there are a list of MPs. So they have their names, their constituency, and the number of sittings missed. Top of that list is Sarah Adjoa-Safo, who is with the Dom Kwabena constituency, and she's missed 40. Henry Quarte, 30. Ejenim Boateng Kweku, Brekum West, 28. Joe Garte, Isikado, has missed 28. Ajuman Menu, Health Minister, has missed 24. Kojo Oponkruma, who is Information Minister and MP for CRB, has missed 24. It's a long list that we have there. But let me come to you, ma'am. It's interesting. Initial reactions I've seen to this report by Odikro from people on social media is it appears that there is some selectivity about who to call out in terms of absenteeism, and why others, like I've mentioned, the Health Minister, the Information Minister, are not being called out. And there's so much focus on these three people who have appeared before Parliament's Privileges Committee. Do you agree with that?
I think that, first of all, the reason Odikro is able to do this work is that, you see, the recordings of Parliament, the register is in the votes and proceedings. And in the, an MP is marked present, absent with permission, and then absent. Absent without permission is the issue. Once you have a 14-day grace period to not officially absent yourself, and then after the 15th day, you trip the violation of Article 91(1)(c). But it's in the votes and proceedings. So unless you do what we do, which is that we take the votes and proceedings, we scan it, and then we use software, programming language to tease out the data, and then we verify. It's very intensive now. But it was obvious that the MP for Domika Kwabena, the Honorable Adjoa-Safo, wasn't in Parliament. It's also always obvious. I mean, this is, I'm not making this up. Any absenteeism report of a meeting of Parliament that Odikro has compiled, the Honorable candidate Japan is always on the list. So it's also not very hard to assume he's going to be on the list. And I suppose they had noticed the Honorable Quarte. But in any meeting, there's going to be more than 3 people who trip that violation. Particularly a sizable number of them on this list, I think about 10 to 15 are minister MPs. We always have a problem with minister MPs not filling out this form. I want to emphasize to Ghanaians that the requirement to fill, it's a requirement to fill a very simple form that Parliament itself has designed for its MPs. It's not a letter. It's not a phone call to your leader to say, senior, I'm traveling. It's a simple form that has to be filled. And ministers who are MPs are always tripping and this violation, not filling it out. Of course, it's not all the ministers. So some of them do a better job of informing Parliament when they are going to be away. And some of them are doing a very poor job. It's a mystery because they have a lot of staff. You can actually have somebody whose job is just to fill this thing out for you. I do not understand. But at Odikro, we have always, and it's not just Odikro, emphasized that the constitutional provision about MPs, the executive picking ministers from Parliament, 50% of his cabinet or whatever, that has to go because it just creates a conflict. But beyond that, it's an administrative burden. There is grace. So I think that it is because Parliament isn't compiling the data the way we do it. So it's not obvious because 15 days. I've heard some of the MPs saying that they are not sure our data is correct because they've been seeing the people on some of the people on the list in Parliament. It's not about seeing the people in Parliament. It's about what is in Parliament on votes and proceedings. So unless that is teased out, it's going to be sometimes difficult to, because we know it's paper, it's a register, it's not a biometric register. It's not a program they run to automatically see who is absent. But also, I think we've been struggling with getting Parliament to pay attention to absenteeism.
Yeah.
This is not even about losing seats, because as I said, the Constitution itself gives a grace period. Then the rules say they have to go to be called to the Privileges Committee to explain another grace period. So before we even get to losing the seat, you have 2 grace periods to explain yourself to your employer.
Right, Kina.
And by extension, the Ghanaian people.
Right.
Yes.
So if I get your submission right, and I've just been going through your release, these MPs you've listed here absented themselves for 15 or more days without permission.
Yes, that is the violation.
Sure. Yes. Now, let's look at this situation. So we're having a conversation here about a study that's been conducted looking into the possibility of some MPs losing their seats. Let's tie it in with their performance in Parliament. I know that there was no direct correlation or study of that, but let's just examine it and assess it. Previous studies, and I've seen some by Odikro and other organizations, show that a lot of constituents do not even understand what the job of their MP is. And so there are expectations that he will show up at a funeral, a wedding, he will send a contribution, they want to see him in the constituency. But this is the real job they have been mandated to do. That is to sit in Parliament, go through bills, debate issues, formulate laws, and pass agreements. You have a situation where we have it here, key members of government who are also MPs do not show up to do their work. How do you see this playing into the possibility of retaining or losing their seats?
Well, a lot of factors goes into people retaining or losing their seats. One of the reports that we did, I think we were accused of our report lending credence. So I think that one of the elections that NDC lost a lot of seats, and that was not our fault. We just are reporting on this. But what I want to point out is the issue that the threat of losing the seat, either through actual being called on having violated the constitutional provision on absenteeism, or losing the seat at an election, is not, I want to emphasize, it's not the issue. We cannot wait for an MP who is chronically absent to lose their seat in 4 years. There are 4 sessions to any parliament. And I think 3 meetings per session, 12 meetings, and 4 years of representation. We keep on focusing so much on re-elections and retaining seats and retaining parties in power. We lose out on the fact that 4 years interval is a lot of time in the governance and the development of Ghana in the lives of our country. So I'd like for us to dial back from this business of losing seats and really look at, because if we can have a situation where every 4 years MPs are losing their seats, and still have a situation where within those 4 years, we are not getting adequate representation. So we need to focus on how do we move adequate, effective representation, accountability, and transparency within a 4-year parliament. That is the issue. Because we've been doing election and re-election, people have been losing their seats. We are not getting what we want from our parliament. That's what we need to focus on. So it's not exciting that somebody will lose their seat because of this. Because because you see what I'm trying to say is that what happens to representation in the 4 years? This is our problem. We need the rules that have been set down in the Constitution to be followed. We need effective representation every single meeting. We need for the issues of Ghanaians to be addressed. We need for MPs to respect the rules of attendance. And we need for the Privileges Committee to hold people to account, to actually even come and explain yourself. Just come and explain yourself.
Interesting thought. I will go back to the inferences from both reports, but how exactly do we do what you're talking about? Because it would appear from this list that people have got away practically with absenting themselves from meetings, and the whip isn't cracked. It's only on these three, interestingly, that the whip is being cracked. And even then, it appears Sarah Adwoa-Safo is the only culprit. So how exactly do we do that?
We need for the media to hammer the point home. We need to reach more Ghanaians, because I think that as much as Odukro does this work, like you are saying, we are always coming up against the wall of Ghanaians not understanding what an MP is supposed to do. And the fact that there are responsibilities, the mandate of Parliament is so powerful and so unique. Only Parliament can hold the executive accountable as a governance institution. And if we just look at it as a 4-year voting cycle, we lose out on it. There's a lot of work we need to do to restore the power of Parliament so that in our favor, it can represent us. So it's the issue has to be, and I know, we need to turn back from elections. After elections have been done, we need to do a better job. Democracy is not only about elections. Elections is a very small, albeit a very important part. But accountability, holding people responsible, letting our MPs know this is not on, not taking the money that they want to throw at us, and therefore if they throw the money at us as funeral contributions, they are not going to do the work.
But Kina, pardon my interjection. Pardon my interjection, but we have a cycle. Every 4 years we get to do this. I guess it's one of the most punitive measures we can bring to bear on our members of Parliament if we see them not performing. I agree. A lot of the time we don't pay attention to who is in Parliament. There are members of Parliament who even go there. Yes, they participate in lawmaking, so to speak. Don't ask any questions. Don't table anything on the floor. They are practically just stumps there, so to speak. Yeah. But in terms of giving effect to what you're saying, that's my concern. The media can shout on the rooftops about parliamentarians do the right thing systemically. How do we get that done? Look at the list that has been put out. You put out the list. From 15 to 40, we're talking about 3 of them. There are 30 plus of them involved. So how really do we get Parliament working?
We need to, with regards to this particular list, to the regard of absenteeism attendance, we need to really push for constitutional reform and to revoke the article that forces presidents to choose the
majority of ministers from Parliament.
We need to change that. We ourselves need to change how we approach governance. We need to change how we need to understand. There's so much we need to do. We need to address party corruption, party politics, fundraising. These are more, you see, the elections are very important, yes. But if you are stuck in a cycle where you're within the 4 years, you are not doing things to change. We need to do these things differently. I commend Ghanaians for having voted into Parliament, for the 8th Parliament, for this Parliament to be even so close and sometimes a hung Parliament. So if we are going to look at elections, we need to vote differently. We need to continue to we need to do things to shake it up. So if we go to elections and you are returning the same people, shake it up. If you, after your person has won, hold them accountable in a different way. There's so much that we can be doing. We act as though we need to broaden the conversation across Ghana so that some of these things that we talk about are not only happening in English and are not only happening in Accra. That's when we get the things that we want out of it, because an MP is really accountable to their constituents.
Right.
If their constituents are not getting the benefit of a conversation we are having, it's not going to help.
Right. We'll come back to you shortly, but let me introduce Sami Oping, who is with Parliamentary Network Africa. Good morning to you, Sami, and thanks for joining us once again. The last time we spoke, I posed a direct question to you about what your reaction would be if Sarah Adwoa-Safo came back into the country and still had her job in Parliament. You said you would be scandalized. We know for a fact that she's been sacked or relieved of her position as gender minister, but her seat in Parliament is still hanging. The Speaker says, I won't rush this. I need time to think through and make a decision. How does that come across to you?
Well, it's a missed opportunity by Parliament to directly show leadership on a subject matter that they themselves have been battling with, the issue of absenteeism. And to have allowed 3 more months of indecision on the subject matter, because they are returning, I am told, in the 3rd week of October. So to have allowed 3 more months of no decision on the subject matter is just 3 more months of they communicating to us that they may not be as serious on this subject matter as they profess to be. And you see, when these things happen, it causes even bigger impunity within members of Parliament. Now, take a look at this. I heard the conversations with Kina, and let me commend Odikro highly for these works. I think that these signals should let Parliament know that if they thought that deferring this decision for the next 3 months means that we are going to forget about it, they are probably deceiving themselves, because reports like this will continue to come up. We'll continue to remind them about the need to take a decision on these 3 and what have you. But the 3 that were referred to the Privileges Committee, and I think this is a little bit also of clarification. I've seen a lot of what for me appears to be a bit of a misunderstanding on social media. The 3 that were referred to the Privileges Committee are 3 members who flouted that particular article of the Constitution in the first session of Parliament. So that is in 2021. So these were the corporates, if I should put it that way, of 2021. The report just released by Adikro, I've cited it, is talking about those who have flouted it in the first meeting of 2022. What this means to me is that because a decision has still not been taken on a certain group of 3, of course, the referral to Privileges Committee was done in May. So even the referral, at the time of the referral, we had not, the period that Odikro's report captured, by that time, the referral had not been made. But what it means is that there is a growing increase in the level of absenteeism flouting that particular constitutional provision, from 3 now to 33. And if they continue not to take a firm decision on these matters, 33 will move to 100. And we will soon have parliaments that are empty, and we will soon have them as leaders, the Speaker himself, his deputy speakers, complaining all the time about the fact that the chamber is empty. If the chamber is empty and you are frustrated about it and you want work done, you must take decisive actions on it. And so it was a missed opportunity, but 3 months we will wait. If the Speaker wants to make a reasoned decision in a matter of 3 months, we will wait. He has the power, or the institution of Parliament has the power to make that particular decision. But if they think that 3 months will make us forget, and they think that procedural gymnastics will make us forget, then I think that they probably are deceiving themselves.
Sami, okay, so there are those who say that there could be justifiable reasons why the Speaker of Parliament wants more time to think through this. Do you in any way think of any justifiable reason why an MP should be out of Parliament for this long? For which reason she should be given some sympathy or some empathy in determining whether her seat should remain or not?
As of yesterday, the Honourable Member of Parliament for Dom Kwapenya had been absent in Parliament for 3 straight meetings of Parliament. So 1 full year. This 8th Parliament has only been in place for 1.5 years. And out of that 1.5 year, 1 year, so 2/3 of it, an individual member of Parliament has simply reneged on her responsibility. That 1 year is also a quarter, 1/4 of the entire duration that a Parliament has. I really do not think that anybody who puts any other thing above his or her parliamentary duty for a full year has any business in Parliament. And so there could absolutely be no justifiable reason for this, in my opinion. And you see, the Constitution was very magnanimous. It says that 15 sitting days in a meeting of Parliament. If you've got to be absent, like Kina was explaining, write a simple request for permission. It's a form, like she explained. Fill it out, submit it at the right quarters, so that you are marked as absent with permission. If you do not do this, you miss the work in the House. You are hauled to the Privileges Committee because the Constitution, same in its magnanimity, decides that, okay, you cannot be, declared guilty without being heard. So come and tell us why you were not there, so that the Privileges Committee would determine whether this is justifiable or not. You do not make yourself available. We hear you on television and we see you on social media making and passing comments, which are not the fora for which such comments must be made, because Parliament is the House of Record. So you go to the appropriate forum, you make your case, everybody understands you, and everybody says that let's move on. If you do not do all of this, for me, there is absolutely no justification. And you see, it is a problem because this goes to the heart of the representational function of members of Parliament, which for us in civil society and for us as citizens, we must guard jealously. Because all of us cannot be in Parliament, we queue, vote for individuals and say, represent us. So to think that the most populous constituency in Ghana has for 1 full year not been heard on the floor of Parliament, not been, involved in the activities that goes on the floor of Parliament, for me, is a big issue, and we must not take kindly at all.
So, Sam, just a quick one. It's interesting. I'm trying to draw some linkages between the 2 surveys we are looking at here, or the 2 reports. Odikro telling us about these 33 members of Parliament, and then the Global Info Analytics in terms of which members of Parliament are at risk of losing their seats, both in the internal elections, the primaries, and then in the general elections. There's quite an interesting picture, fusing the 2 together. Guess what? You would find there on the list, Yawase Educhum, Member of Parliament for Busumtri, also Education Minister. He is on both lists in terms of susceptibility to losing a seat, and he is also one of the absentees, according to Odikro's list. Then you pick John Peter Amewu, Member of Parliament for Hohoe. He's also there. Matthew Opoku Prempe Napo is also on both lists. You have Ursula Owusu Ekufo, Communications Minister, also on that list, Member of Parliament for Ablekuma West, among others. Do you think this could play out in terms of, how do you think this could play out in terms of absenteeism in Parliament and the real effect it could have in shaping the outcome of elections?
Well, the report that showed who are likely or at risk of losing their seats at primary levels and at main elections level,
right,
is one that was done with many reasons, but constituency-specific reasons why people may lose their seats or may retain their seats. And if this gets compounded, which means that already you have challenges within your own constituency, if this gets compounded by the kinds of conversations that are going on with media reports and these absenteeism reports, then obviously you as a member of Parliament are digging your own grave. And if, like I said from the very beginning, once they are the branch of government that must hold the executive branch to account, they must know that the one who watches the watchman would be watched consistently, and for which reason those of us in civil society will also continuously look out to things like this. And that's why I commended Odikro from the very beginning. If they continue to absent themselves, continuously it will be made known. Their people will know that when they send them to Accra to come work for them, they decided that they would not do that particular work and would do other things, for which reason the people would determine whether they have business in Parliament or not. But you see, like Kina said, this goes beyond just waiting for the next election.
Right.
You know, this goes to the heart of making members of Parliament recognize that we are not pleased with some of these things when they do them, because 4 years down the line, they will come shouting at the rooftop. And sometimes these chronic absentees will be the ones shouting the most about delays in their ex gratia, about delays in certain things that they are entitled to. Yet, if you miss work for a full year and you think that you deserve 100% ex gratia, then I think that we should be looking at some of these things again. So we'll continue to trumpet these things. And I think that those who take the people of Ghana seriously will have to change their ways and ensure that they go to the place where they've been assigned to go do work, which is the House of Legislation.
All right. Thank you so much, Samuel Bing, for joining the conversation. He is with Parliamentary Network Africa. Let's come back into the studio and wrap the conversation with Musa Dankwa of Global Info Analytics. I have a few thoughts for you, even as we push the conversation forward. I find it interesting. The internal elections of the MPP and Bernice as well. So these members of Parliament, you point to big wigs in the MPP. I'm talking about Dr. John Kuma, Matthew Opoku Prempeh, Yao Osei Educhum. These are cabinet ministers who are members of Parliament as well. And when you look at the reasons you cite here, John Kuma, for example, well, at least John Kuma is a deputy. A little over half of MPP voters are likely to vote for him. This MP could make it through the primaries, but we expect him to win the seat if he wins the primaries. But only 35% of voters are likely to vote for him. Then you look at Manshia South, and you also look at the fact that he is on the ropes, as 71% of voters are unlikely to vote for him, and then 58% of voters unlikely to go for Dr. Osei Educhum. These three alone could be huge casualties for the MPP, especially if they even bow out internally. Let's look at that.
I think what this may have in the general election is that if they are the candidates for the MPP, it could have impact on turnout in MPP in the constituency, because people seem to be revolting against some incumbents, some known faces in Parliament. And in an election where you are in a back foot, I think some of these people will create more anger to the voters. So that's what we are seeing now. Once people are angry with you, and if you're able to scrape through the primaries, the anger will continue. And
it will reflect in the general elections.
Exactly. So it gives the party the chance to see, okay, who among the big wigs with him we can allow him to fall by his own sword, and who we should not propel. When you do that, you are giving people options that they don't like.
This reminds me of what happened in the just ended elections, where we knew that there were some kingmakers who were insisting that certain people, even incumbents, should step down. Right. Talk of the
Fomena is MP, a typical
classic example. And so even within the MPP itself, there appears, I mean, even, if you decide to put this aside, history has taught us that there appears to be a lot of discontent with delegates and who and how they choose their candidates for the MP position. But it's very interesting. Let me just come to you, because quite recently we've had the police service hit hard on methodology
maybe just before you come in with methodology, just quickly, because we've done the MPP side, let's also
do
the NDC side very
Fair.
quickly.
Yeah.
When it comes to the NDC side, in terms of the seats at risk, you only cite Okaikwe North and Teresa Awuni there. But some of the big wigs in there who could go, Kolek Lotte.
Yes.
We have the Rawlings, factor in there, Zaneto, Ajaman Rawlings. Then Odododiodo. I found that interesting, because you're saying that Neelanti Van der Poy is at risk, and then we have Esikuma Odobe Mbrakwa as well. Just walk us through that briefly, and then we shall get into it.
If you look at Ajaman Rawlings, she has an internal problem.
Which is what?
Which is the party is not fully behind her. The people who are going to vote for her within her party are split. Some are sitting on the fence, some say they won't vote for her, and very few say they are voting for her. So in an election where it's going to be very close, If you can't rally your party behind it solidly, you're going to be in trouble.
You're likely to lose.
You're likely to lose. The same way, Orododio, the same problem. And this is not united in that constituency. And that is giving the incumbent MP a hell of a time. So you have to really understand whether you are being backed by your party wholly, or some of the members are sitting on the fence and thinking, should we vote for him or should we let him go? So that's what is happening in some of these races.
Interesting. So let's zoom in on how you arrived at these conclusions.
All right. This is part of the national poll that we carried out, where we interviewed 5,490 voters across the country with a margin of error of 1.737% and 99% confidence interval. Now, these samples were assigned to each constituency based on the size of that constituency relative to the areas we are polling. So there are certain areas that have good number of sample, and that sample gives you sometimes just a hint of what could be going on there. In some cases where we believe that the candidate is a very high-profile candidate, and we think the number could be statistical noise, we go back again and reconfirm. So as we are speaking right now, as we speak, we are confirming Ifutu constituency.
Okay.
And we are confirming another Umpre, Adwajiri in some.
Okay. Ifutu,
yes.
Alexander Afenyo Market.
Yes. And by Sunday, those reports will be out. And we'll see whether we are confirming what this sample has given us. So this may be a sign. It may not necessarily be the entire story, but it gives you opportunity to see, okay, what can I do? Can I commission a bigger survey to see the entire constituency, whether this is okay or just a statistical noise? So people should not take it kindly. I heard people in, I said, look, take it on a face value, go and do your own work and see what is happening, because a lot is happening. And we are hearing so much from voters that if we should play some of the things we're hearing from the field.
So I'm interested. So how was the information gathered? Was this a questionnaire? Was this qualitative or quantitative?
Okay. This is quantitative. We deploy the questionnaire on tablets and give it to our field officers to go out and vote, to take the survey. We sampled a minimum of 3 electoral areas in the national sample. Because in the national sample, the focus is not on the constituency. So, but we at least cover 3 electoral areas within the constituency. And then people who are interviewed randomly on the street without any pre-selection criteria.
So how do you know, for example, if somebody is a member of the NPP or the NDC?
Good. What we do is that, we know the Ghanaian voter very well. If you start asking them their party affiliations and stuff like that, the following questions, they will lie to you. So we engage them in a very nationalistic conversation. That they think, oh, this is a national issue. Then we begin to zoom down slowly into the political issues. By that time, he's comfortable with you. And then at the end of the interview, when he has answered the key questions, then you ask them, oh, how old are you? Are you a student? Or are you a worker? All those questions. And then at the very last question is, we ask them, which political party do you normally vote for? We don't say you are a member of.
Okay.
Which political party do you usually or normally vote for in an election? Oh, sometimes I vote this party, sometimes I vote that party. That makes them a floating voter. Oh, as for me, I normally vote for MPP affiliate. As for me, I normally vote for NDC affiliate. We have seen a new block of voters currently who are saying other parties, other than CPP, PPP, PNC, which means the GFP, the small parties, and they are amounting to over 20-30% of the blocks. We believe they are not other parties.
Let me just quickly satisfy my curiosity on this bit. So you did some internal analysis, and that would mean then that it's delegates who are going to vote for that person. So if there's no provision in there as to whether the person is a card-bearing member or a delegate, how does it feed into the internal decisions that will be taken?
You see, there's always a lag between the views of the public and those of the delegates. When you are ahead in the general public, the delegates are part of us. They live with us. They know and they hear when you are doing well, and they know when you're not doing well. Right. So eventually the poll will catch up with you. And with time, this will feed into the constituency. And eventually, the delegates say, look, people are saying that you're not doing well, so I don't think I can go with you. So this is the effect it may have on the races, even the internal races.
It's a very interesting picture you've painted for us. I'm sure as you keep getting more information, we'll also keep, getting better. But for me, if I were a member of parliament and I found myself here, it would simply mean I had a lot more work to do. My work was cut out for me. But thank you so much, Musa Dankwa of Global Info Analytics. We also had Samir Bing of the Parliamentary Network Africa and Kina Likimani of Odikro joining this conversation. But up next, when we actually return, well, it is what you're going to see next on your screens. Michael Papani Ashale will be joining us. Interesting perspectives because he's been at the Achimota Retail Center and there's a whole lot when it comes to SIM card registration. That up next.
So he's actually joining us from the Elwak Sports Stadium where, there is the Ghana card registration happening. We know you cannot link your SIM card if you don't have a Ghana card.
Yes, definitely.
So it's important. We've just got 2 days to that deadline, and there are many people who are still queuing to get their Ghana card. Michael is there to tell us what he's been observing. Michael, go ahead.
Yes, so Bernice and Akakpo, the challenges here at the Elwak Stadium is a lot. As we know, the deadline for the SIM card registration exercise is fast approaching, and many people have peculiar challenges. The scores of people that you can see behind me here, their challenge really is with the syncing of their cards to that of their SIM cards. They tell me that the telcos tell them their SIM cards have, their Ghana cards, I beg your pardon, have to be activated before they can sync the two. But some of them were earlier here telling me that they've gone between the telcos and the NIA more than 3 times, and the challenge seems to persist. But some of them have been here for hours. Let me find out for them why they are here. What time did they come here? What have they been hearing from the officials? Let me start with this gentleman here. But what time were you here? What have you been hearing from them so far?
Me pacho me ba say ahomache 5:30. Na 5:30 nso ameba nso be 2 nipa bi. Nipa bebre so okay nim. Na no kwasem se me de ma adwene fam kura na me to so be 70. Eye 5:30 be na me to so be 70. Na sisi ankasa me guso America se ankasa me say de nti ameba nsem se me wo problem kakra wo me Ghana card no ho. Na problem me say mensa kam Ghana card no all right. Na eden de ma me say metimi alenke e de ama MTN. And I say any another network and then Palma meeting their link only 20 na me wa say no na ya ba say some penifo na years 3 o ma bra your forms be am ya fele right now so obehu na nkofo beble kuta sa forms no to mu o ma bra forms be am ya fele right now so see enti no ye sure say enche bia na ebe den ebe duru yen so na kwasem me say wo hwe e wax the ha na esitie na nkasa na enye me nkwa na mo problem wo hwe I can even say almost be 800 people because how you cry me gina me backstage no cry no roughly no enipa wo mechi cry no almost be 400 we had the other side no so a omukuta be nipa be 300 ana wo mo so a mo animu tenten so a o mo de nso akwa say omo Ghana card na ayra ene omo afi no ma be na foforo no so no on the almost be 800.
So what he's been telling me is that for him the challenge is that he's not able to sync his Ghana card to his SIM card. They here to do the activation process. He showed you some of the process that he's been able to. So he has a card validation desk. The paper he's holding is a card validation desk. So he's going to a desk not far from me. Let me find out from some other people what they've been doing here. So what's your peculiar challenge?
I used this card last 2 weeks to register my Tigo. But to go and register the MTN, they say it's expired. So I'm here to check.
They told you the card has expired.
Expired.
Did you ask them what that meant?
Right now, I'm here to ask them.
So you have 2 SIM cards. That of Tigo you have registered, but that of the MTN you haven't been able to do that.
The MTN they say are expired. So I registered the Tigo. I registered like 2 weeks. Last 2 weeks, I used the same Ghana card to register it, but about the MTN they say has expired.
I think the expiry date is supposed to be on the back, on the card.
This card I did.
You did the card for 250 Ghana cedis, but it's been difficult to okay.
Ashashi 2.5. 3 years. 3 years can soon, yeah. Why did they expire?
But since when have you been here?
yesterday I came plenty. I have to go and wake up like 4 o'clock to come here. So yesterday I didn't do it. This morning I have to wake up 4 o'clock. So I'm here.
Let me find out for some more people. Bossman, what's your peculiar challenge? Why are you here? Are you also here because the Ghana card cannot be synced with your ID?
Can I speak Chi?
Yeah, feel free.
Sir, me brother, me there that. Na me yirini. Na there no. Also ya ko register sim no. Ya ko me there fa na there no yesi emfa no say me ne yenti no mo kire say yamra ha na me nti yesora match be 4 o'clock. Ya fa ka e be duru ha it be the line so.
You've been here since 4 a.m. What position were you at the time you came?
Is it?
Where were you in the queue? At far back?
Yeah, just we go here. No, we go here first. No, just down here. Then we direct from here.
So he's here to represent his wife, who's having challenges again syncing their Ghana card to their SIM card. They have to activate the Ghana card, they are told, from the telcos. So all these people basically have just that problem in common. This is exact station that they would have to go to. They have to go through that winding queue and finally have to get to this point that you see in your shot, and then have to see the gentleman sitting there who is the man in charge of the card activation desk. So when you come here, there's a high chance that your problem will be solved. But some people have some peculiar challenge with that as well, that even at this desk, they are told that there's nothing problem with their card, that it is activated, but they sometimes have to go to the telcos just to bounce them to bring them back to this place. Earlier, there was a nurse here who told me that she had that challenge of running between this desk and the telcos 3 times, and that seems to be the challenge for her there. There are many more people here with different challenges. On the other side of this particular stance, you have these individuals who have corrections to be made on their Ghana card, and for them it's a mirage, a dream to think of registering your Ghana card anytime soon, because they have to rectify the errors on their Ghana card before they can go ahead with it will be difficult for them. Let me find this old man here real quickly and talk to him on the situation with his Ghana card. He has an error. Daddy, earlier you're telling me that you have an error on your Ghana card. How long has it taken you to try to rectify it?
Since about 2 months ago.
2 months. You've been trying to rectify the error on it. What was the particular error on it? Is it your name or date of birth?
The name. The name has changed.
So from what to what?
From Akwasi to Daddy.
Okay. So his name has changed. That only means that you've not been able to do your SIM card re-registration.
No, I couldn't do it because of...
And the deadline is fast approaching.
Yes, that's why I've come.
How does that make you feel that on Monday your SIM card is going to be cancelled?
I'm very, very sorry if the SIM card is cancelled. I will not be happy.
Sure. Let me thank you very much. Yes. So, Bernice and Akakpo, this is just a tip of the iceberg of the situations happening at the Elwak Sports Stadium.
Very much, Michael Papaniashale, my colleague there, bringing us the scoop as far as the Ghana card registration is concerned. And you can see the queues there, like I mentioned, and I'll not stop saying this, even my own mother yesterday in that same situation. So it paints a picture when it comes to the registration. But let's move the conversation forward. JoyNews, in partnership with EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, and the Planned Cities Extension Project from Cities and Habitats will make home ownership easy peasy. This year's fair is under the theme Home Ownership, where you live matters. And at the EcoBank JoyNews Habitat Fair, we've got you covered with all your needs from mortgages, personal loans, consumer financing, land acquisition, security, and much more. For inquiries, just call 054-690-8179 or 054-011-0389. The EcoBank JoyNews Habitat Fair is in partnership with EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, and powered by the Planned Cities Extension Project from Cities and Habitats Rent to Own. It's also sponsored by Elegant Homes and General Construction Limited, where quality meets value, Virtual Security Africa, Complete Security Solutions, Superlock Technologies Limited. You deserve the best. DBS Industries Limited, we truly are your roof experts. Duraplast Limited, where Duraplast goes, water flows. Gold Key Properties, building prestige since 1997. Don't you forget, where you live matters. And that's why we're about to have this conversation right now. It all has to do with the second clinic of the 13th installment of the EcoBank JoyNews Habitat Fair. Joining me for a conversation from EcoBank, the head of digital banking, Alfred Hammond. Alfred, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Ben.
Thanks for joining the conversation.
Ben, you know, anytime we get the opportunity to speak to your cherished listeners, we never pass up the opportunity. So I'm super excited to be here.
And we're excited to have you. Thanks for partnering us over this period, as far as the EcoBank Habitat Fair is concerned. But off the top of, my head, I'll be asking, if I wanted to get a home, what are the available consumer financing, packages available that EcoBank could offer me?
So last year, our focus was purely on mortgages. And then our consumers spoke, we listened. We've decided to break the product. But at the base of all our products is consumer insight, which is what does the consumer need at this point. And things are a little tough across the world.
Right. Economically, things are shrinking. So
So we had people come to us and say, not everybody can afford to buy a house. Where you live matters. A house in Cantonment is not the same as a house in Weeby. It's not the same as a house in my hometown. But the idea is to give people different options for them to be able to afford the homes that they want to live in. Because it's not just about where your house is, it's about where your kids go to school. It's about the distance to your office.
Right.
It's about the...
are you in the center of town? Are you in the suburbs? Are you on the outskirts of town?
Amenities, all of that. So we've come out with 4 different products that could help people to realize their dream of either living in their home or acquiring a second home. So the first one is the mortgage product.
Okay.
That you can just walk into our office, put your salary down. At Multimedia, we know KT pays a lot of money. So at Multimedia, you can just walk in and say you want to buy.
If you were expecting me to react to that, I bought 5 6s and lost.
You have reacted. Actually, you have reacted. I've gotten the reaction I was looking for. But maybe you want to buy a condo in Cantonment, as an example.
Charlie, that sounds good. A condo in Cantonment.
It befits you. I mean, from Joy to Cantonment, it's pretty close. You can leave the house and in a few minutes you'll be here. When you get off work, you can also, reach. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Where you live matters, right?
I know, right?
I'll be praying that very soon you'll be coming for that conversation in Cantonment.
Not bad.
I've been talking about living in Cantonment since I was like 6 years old. I was born in Newtown. But from Newtown to Cantonment, that's my dream.
Yeah.
I've not realized the dream yet, but I'm coming. Small. I'll reach Cantonment one day. But the idea was that first there's people who could afford the mortgage. So there's that conversation when you walk into the bank now, check your salary, check your debt service ratio up to 50%, get a mortgage. Home is done for you in a couple of days. So there's that first option. Then there was a challenge where when you're buying buying a house, and you apply for a mortgage, you need to pay 20%.
Right.
People couldn't afford the 20%. So then our conversations were, how do we help people?
To get to 20%?
Yes, to cross that barrier of 20%. And then our conversations with the government, you can actually borrow against your tier 2 or tier 3, depending on where you work. Like I said, like Joy FM, reputable.
So you're basically committing your pensions ahead of time?
Yes, you just use your pension to weight against that, and then you don't have to provide the 20%. And then that's done with the weighting. And then you get to actually enjoy getting a mortgage without having to put up that 20%. Now the third option was for someone like you who's already built your first house. You probably want to
for someone like me.
For you, who's
I receive it.
Will you be hosting us this weekend?
Yeah.
For someone like you,
you are motivating me to get one of the home.
The big thing was that some people actually also wanted to release equity in their homes. And what does that mean? I've already built a house. The house is valued at $150,000. I want to put up another property, or I just want cash to invest. I can release up to 50% of the value of that house in equity. So the bank will own half, you own half,
right.
And you get that cash up front, and you pay it off like a mortgage. But you have that cash up front to either put in a business,
right.
or actually start a new property,
right.
Be it a commercial property, be it a second home.
And have the flexibility of payment over time.
Over time. So that's the sweet thing about the equity release. So I've spoken about the 3 products. The last product now is what the customers are actually hounding us for. It's a consumer finance product.
Okay.
Because last year, when we were talking about to build or to own, a lot of customers came to us and said, we already have land. But we want money to buy building materials, as an example. We want money to be to put up a fence wall. We want money to finish the house. We've already put up the structure. We had lintel. We want money to roof. So we got into conversations with our partners, DBS, Akakpo. The list is endless. If I decide to mention all of them, I'm sure you charge us for the advertisement, so I would skip all the partners that we have, but we have a host of partners. And the idea was that, okay, let's partner people. Let's also be able to give loans to people. So personal loans to be able to do what you want to do. And get people to, be, for example, walk to a Kilforio and Atala or this goes on.
Wherever it is.
And say, I want to buy building materials. I want 20 tons of iron rods. I want 30 trips of sand. I want some cement bags. And then half that invoice and say, okay, I want a loan of 150,000 to move this. I already have 30,000 to pay for labor. So EcoBank pays for this, and then you're able to pay for the labor, and then the building goes on. You can build in your own time. You can build at the stretch. You can take loans of up to from 2 to 5 years. I mean, it depends on you. So the consumer finance is because people spoke to us last year. They said, hey, guys, it's really good that you have this mortgage product, but not all of us have.
So now basically you've widened the scope.
Yes.
And a lot more, I'm assuming a lot more people fall into this category. There are a lot of people who would come and say, look, I've started something, help me out, and let's complete it.
You know, the interesting part is that most people walk in and want to have a mortgage conversation, find out how much they're eligible for because of our interest rates in these parts, and then realize that they can't take the mortgage. But they can take loans that are pretty sizable and can be used to do a building, if you're building yourself, as an example. Or if you have a contractor that's building for you, can be done in tranches. So then the conversations moved from a straight jacket, let's give you a mortgage, to let's help you own your own.
Kudos to EcoBank for that. But I know you're doing home acquisition or home improvement, right? How much can one access under these schemes that you make mention of?
So it all comes back to your salary. And
So averagely, I mean, if you're looking at someone earning X, what would be the access point or access rate? If you're looking at someone, let's look at some dynamics, maybe blue collar, white collar.
If I start to throw numbers out there, I think that some people will be encouraged and
others will be discouraged. Okay.
So I would try to shy away from that until you can actually sit in front of an advisor who can look at your salary and give you an idea of what you should take. But people are taking mortgages of up to $800,000.
Wow.
Somebody walked in last week.
They are chilling with the big boys.
Yeah, somebody wanted to buy a house in Airport Hills. You know where you live matters.
Yeah. Where you live matters. Airport Hills, Charlie.
So the person, and it was a woman, she bought the house. She doesn't even live in Ghana much. She wanted, what did she call it, a holiday home. I hope we and I get there where we can have holiday homes in different places.
On holiday, you just come and chill.
Just pass through, see what's happening, and then you're able to leave. But it's basically dependent on your inflows. The interesting thing is that there's an express credit facility. So there are people who have, for example, I like to use you as an example because I know how much you have in our bank because you save in our bank. So, for example, against your 2 million CD investments.
I'm issuing a disclaimer there.
I'm just saying. I know your family is watching and the bills might come, but like for the 2 million CDs that you have.
Before people start thinking, I don't even.
No, receive it in Jesus' name.
Okay, I receive it.
Faith is believing in things that you cannot
receive it.
see.
I receive it.
So
I'm just avoiding the perception.
You have a 2 million CD investment as an example.
Right.
You can borrow up to 90% of that. So instead of taking that 2 million and going to use to build a house or buy a house, you can borrow against that 2 million.
Right.
Spread the payments. Actually keep your 2 million and have your house. So that's an express credit facility. Once you're borrowing against your investments. But like I said, at EcoBank, depending on who you are, you get a different product.
So let's talk about who you are, because there are different people coming. Now, there are some who have already started projects who are coming to you. How about those who want to buy land, like who now want to start? How do they go about it? So this person doesn't have land, doesn't have all those things before coming and say, oh, I built up to this level, maybe roofing level, I'm struggling, so help me. This person, Onishe, Afenoba.
So that was me a couple of years ago. Now, thanks be to God, I've almost finished paying for the land. You say, we are not the same. You're a Martian. I'm just...
I like the way you keep throwing. I receive all of them.
So, the idea is, again, we've partnered with a couple of people, Rehoboth, Regimano, service plots across Royal Valley. So different places in and out of town, depending on where you want to live. Our idea is, again, to be able to give you loans for you to be able to access these. If you already have somebody that you're buying from, you come, we have a conversation, we give you a loan to be able to buy the land, because the journey of 1,000 steps begins with a single.
Right.
And buying land is definitely a step in the right direction of owning your own home. So I think that for everybody, we have a product for you. All you have to do is come, tell us your unique situation, and we'll give you belief.
Well, your unique situation also refers to how much you earn and all of that. But the good thing is, there's something for everybody.
There's something for everybody.
There's something for everyone. So you can just come through. You have some partners, right?
Yes, we have a lot of partners. I think
if you start on that road, we would not end.
No, I think I was prompted that anybody that I mentioned, I have to pay a certain amount for free publicity.
You know.
But the idea is that when you walk into EcoBank, actually, you're able to take a full look at the list, from building partners to finishing partners to furnishing partners. It goes on and on. So from land acquisition all the way to you actually finish, like the way this place is looking elegant, till you actually move into your house.
Alfred, you've made this so mouth-watering. I feel like buying 5 houses already. It's just left with the...
It's the people who have the money that...
Kwacha.
So if you're ready to drink, drink deep or taste not, right? Five houses.
I like this guy.
5 townhomes.
Mr. Hammond, okay, so we'll get there. We'll have holiday residences and all of that. But for those who are looking forward to the second clinic and EcoBank and what you're going to be offering, just tell them what to expect.
I think that the Joy Habitat Fair platform has been a fantastic platform and has provided a sellers and buyers market between people who have something to sell concerning homes and people who have the need for homes. So if you want to find out about anything homes and how you can actually acquire them, I think the best place to be is at the West Hills Mall for the second clinic, and ask all the questions that you want to ask, whereas be provided with all the solutions that you thought were not possible in this town. Because between EcoBank and Joy FM, there's a solution for you.
Together, we'll make the impossible possible. Thank you so much, Alfred Hammond, Head of Digital Banking with EcoBank.
Yes.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Okay, so you do just take a seat and stay with us. We're going to take a little breather. When we return, we'll be taking your comments, and that's how we'll be wrapping the show. What do you have to share on the many matters we've discussed this morning? Stay with us. How's it? That's hello. How about treating your family to a summer holiday in South Africa? Come journey to South Africa for a good time in our beautiful country. Get to know the locals and our languages. If you're looking to let your hair down and relax, or you're just in the mood for some fun, family-friendly adventures, South Africa has got everything you need. This summer, Wazanila. Come this side and experience a holiday worth talking about. Let's go to South Africa, shall we?
Yes, we shall. I miss my pizza.
I was just about to say, my pizza Sibidi. Anyway, if you're catching us, my pizza, we miss you.
We miss you so much.
So
yes.
We'd like to know what people think.
Yes,
right?
yes. And we stepped out today to focus on the Ghana card registration because of how it's linked to the SIM card. It's problematic.
It makes my heart
I know
start,
the communications minister has said that there will be no extension. But if you listen to the issues, some of them are by no fault.
6 million people who are not.
By
what are you going to do?
fault of these Ghanaians. Okay, some of them have missing cards. They can't get them.
What was my mother's crime? She went, got registered for over 2 years. You've not given her card. If the card got missing in the system, you've got a poor old woman, almost 70 years, running around at LWAC. How?
Is it the case that they cannot regenerate the card? Because I want to believe that these are in the system. Anyway, let's just pick a few of your comments on the Adwoa Safo issue. She's been sacked. Quickly, let's take your comments. We ask you to share your thoughts with us. Right. Sufyan Adam Yaya says, how do we sack the one who sacked her? He's the biggest problem as it is. Interesting.
No, that's vicious.
And Ziblim says, I think Honorable Sarah Adwoa Safo is far better than the finance minister. In fact, we are not getting any benefit. Okay, he says. Paul Nas says, the secret between the president and Adwoa must prevail soon after a prolonged absence as a minister from her job. Kingsley says she has with no more salary without work. So can a poor teacher do same in Ghana? No. We are living in an animal kingdom.
Those are interesting comments.
Very, very interesting analysis. But that's all time will permit us here on today's edition of the AM show. Thank you so much for joining us. And
it's been an exciting Friday.
Yeah, you're looking good.
You're looking awesome.
That's the way we always compliment our costume. Well, I've been clothed by Duwe Ghana. Yeah, I know.
Duwe Ghana.
Duwe Ghana, yeah. Okay. Duwe Designs. You can find them on Instagram. Very, and it's very affordable, right? It won't cost you 200 cedis to get this.
Oh, I see.
Yes, already made.
Interesting.
It won't cost you.
Well, today I don't remember. I think this one came from Nigeria many years ago, but it was refurbished by Catherine Gordon just yesterday. Actually.
Oh wow!
I had to do some. So it's an old one I've had. And I had to do some adjustments. Catherine, yeah.
Like they say, you have that much.
Obege, I said one I have a Anyway, on that note.
We have to go. Thank you so much for making time to be with us. We really appreciate that you join us every morning at 6 a.m. when the show starts. And Benjamin does a great job introducing the show, and I join and we conclude together. We wish you the very best of the rest of the week. Please stay safe going into the weekend. If you have to travel, please don't drive tired, don't drink and drive. God willing, on Monday, we are back with another exciting edition.
And don't forget to have a swaggerlicious weekend. We love you.
Take care.